but host callers and guests are not those of the BlueBroadcastNetwork.com, Envisage Production Enterprises, DTV Media LLC, its advertisers, sponsors, or employees.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. We're back in the studio for another episode of the 1023 podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Einstein, with my co-host, the furry little creature right here to my left, Gunner the Service Dog. And let's be honest, you're tuned in right now because he's the real star of the show. Tonight's episode is dedicated to NYPD Deputy Inspector Dennis Mullaney. Deputy Inspector Mullaney grew up in Flushing, Queens, and joined the NYPD in 2000. He quickly moved through the ranks, and before his last command, he was the commander of the NYPD Transit District 20. In September of 2020, Deputy Inspector Mullaney took control over the 107th Precinct, covering where he grew up in Queens. Unfortunately, Deputy Inspector Mullaney committed suicide on April 4th of this year. He was 44 years old. Brother, this episode is for you. All right, for everyone tuning in live on the Facebook live feed, I want to give a huge shout out to Dan DeValier and the Blue Broadcast Network, putting this all together, making this possible. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, welcome and thank you for tuning in. We've got a great show for you tonight, and we're really excited to be back in the studio. We've done a lot of work over the last couple weeks, getting the podcast up and running. Got the video feed up to YouTube. We've been on Instagram, Facebook, and I'm happy to say that now we have the audio streams on pretty much all of the podcast platforms you could think of. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, the list goes on and on. Head to one of those, type in 10-TWOTHREE. You'll see the show pop up. Give us a like, give us a listen. Let us know what you think. So for tonight's show, we have a really important guest. I'm very excited to have him in the studio. Some may call him Pitbull. Some may call him Mr. Shakeweight. He's a staff sergeant in the United States Marine Corps and an instructor at the Marine Corps Civil Military Operations School in Quantico, Virginia. He hails from Baltimore, and he's a great friend of mine, Mr. Shakeweight himself, Chris Gonzalez. Chris, welcome to the studio. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
So, before we get into the nitty-gritty of it, I like to start each episode with what I call the lightning round. All right? So, it's a couple questions. Give me the first answer that pops off the top of your head.
Quick finish.
All right? Yeah, yeah. You know how it is. So, the lightning round, it's always dedicated to my grandmother. When she passed away, her nickname was Lightning, and, you know, she would enjoy this. All right, so you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
All right. Favorite Miley Cyrus song to rock out to?
Oh, Party in the USA, for sure.
All right. When it comes to buffalo wings, wings or thighs?
Oh, wings. Boneless thighs, maybe?
Boneless? Oh.
No.
Good Lord.
No, too soon? I don't know.
Man. Just like last I need a new guest. I can't take this. Jeez.
If you take the one, you could eat it in one bite, one suck.
How do you do that?
No,
one suck?
Yeah,
okay.
you can just do it.
All right. Favorite bar in Baltimore?
Oh,
and I have a follow-up to that.
I think it's going to be Looney's Bar. I haven't been there for a while, but I've been going there literally for 20 years.
I think I know the answer to this next question, but which bar have you been asked to leave the most from?
Oh.
And going back the next day to get your card because they know you?
Oh, I don't think I've ever been actually asked to leave from Looney's, but I'd say a solid baker's dozen from going back the next day with a shameful look on my face. At some point, I was like, people just knew when I was coming back in during the day. They knew I wasn't coming for lunch. They knew it because I left my
or if
card
you showed
there.
up for lunch, they knew it was just going to be in for a long night.
Yeah, I mean, they knew to put like a decent tip on there.
Yeah.
So
They signed your name themselves.
They signed
like,
it, yeah.
Mr.
give them
Gonzalez.
permission, yeah.
All right, next question. What is the acceptable length for men's shorts?
Oh,
Maximum.
max 5 inches.
5 inches? All
5
right.
inches. 5 inches. You know, some will say 7.
That's way too much.
Chubby sells 7. Really, I think it's offensive. It's 5 inches.
I
Five
mean,
and a half, maybe.
There's a reason why Thigh Huggers only does the silkies.
Shout out to thigh huggers.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
They do.
All right. Most memorable time from the Marines?
Oh man. That one's a hard one. Most memorable time from the Marines. That might not be a rapid fire one. I don't know. There's a lot, man. There's like going into to boot camp when you first meet your drill instructor, and that's like, oh boy, this is a real type thing. When you first leave for combat the first time, and then, as a young guy, and then as I left for combat the second time as an old guy, and then, the coming back, and that's kind of fun, that's exciting. And
So it seems like you have a lot of memories.
yeah,
I guess
we'll
get into them a little bit.
there's a lot of good ones, man. I don't know if I got one. That's too. Get that one out of rapid fire.
Oh, they change each episode. So, all right. So you were born in Bowie, Maryland. A lot of people, my Jill's family's from Bowie. I used to say Bowie, and just to pretty much
I
argue with
remember
her,
that, yeah.
Bowie. It's always Bowie, but
Yes.
for you, I'll say Bowie. But you grew up in Crofton. What's that, like right around the corner?
Yeah, I was actually born in Fairfax, but then was raised in Bowie, and then as a high school guy, went to Crofton.
Okay, graduated high school. Did you go in the Marine Corps and then went to college, or did you go to college first? Tell me about that.
So I started out, a lot of my friends went to the Marine Corps straight out of high school. I was a little bit chubby. You've seen some pictures.
Yeah, you're lucky. I tried finding one. I
would
really
have sent
tried.
you some. I would have sent you some.
For those of you watching at home, and for those who are listening after the fact on the audio only, Chris is he's just a triangle of muscle now. High school Chris was more like a Care Bear.
Yeah.
And with a weird mustache.
I wouldn't say weird. I'd say magnificent more than weird. But
I mean, that's.
I had like 8 hairs on the left and 8 hairs on the right, and they were perfectly groomed. And every now and then there would be some stuff on my chin. I mean, it was good.
Well, never mind.
No.
All right, so you graduate high school. Had you even thought about the Marine Corps at all, or military service, or you just said, you know what, I want to get a secondary education? How did that come about?
So I had thought about several things. I was a screw up in high school. I mean, I always got, in my 9th grade year, I got a really screwed up grades. And then my 10th grade year, I couldn't play football. I played football. And so I knew that I would never get poor grades like that again, like below a 2.0.
Oof.
But I was always around a 2.0 in high school.
But
Yeah,
I mean,
it was
you
ninth
show up and you get a 2.0.
Yeah, you just you think about other stuff like, well, we didn't have Pornhub, but
HBO After Dark. The static.
I was thinking more like the Victoria's Secret catalog, but
Okay.
that was 1990 something, man. It was a while ago. But anyway, so I screwed up my freshman year, and then after that, I had to sit out for part of my 10th grade year, and I vowed never to do that again, but still kind of hung around like a 2.25 just to be safe. So I was never great.
You don't want to be a nerd, but you didn't want to not be able to play football. So
Yeah, I mean, I was more in
purposely
school.
did a 2.25.
I was more in school for the social aspect of it.
Oh,
Like
I couldn't tell.
I rarely missed school, high school. It was just a lot of fun. I could go and play all day. I think it was just fun to meet people and all that. But I hurt my finger in my senior year, and I actually had some decent colleges, probably Division II type colleges, looking at me for offensive, defensive tackle. But I missed 6 games in my senior year, so a lot of those schools weren't interested anymore. So the only schools that really were interested was, I think, Frostburg State University in Maryland and Indiana University of Pennsylvania. And I wasn't thrilled about either one of those, and I wasn't thrilled about going to school. And so I actually ended up moving to New Jersey and doing construction with a friend of mine and his parents. And after doing construction for a semester, I'm like, oh no, I am way too much
Mr.
of a
Gonzalez.
sissy. I am the least handy Hispanic person in the United States. I'm going to college. And after that one semester off, I went to the college in the spring. I went to Frostburg State University for, I think, a year and a half. And then I went to the Marine Corps Reserves. And there was a program to do the split reserves where you didn't have to miss school.
Okay. The 90-day, you were a 90-day
I was a
reservist?
90-day reservist, yeah.
So for those who don't know that program, what it does is it allows you to enlist in the Marine Corps into the reserves, as he said. It's for those who are going to secondary education. It's an incentive to say, listen, what we'll do is we'll send you to boot camp, and instead of traditionally going right to your training for your job, you'll come back, go to school, and then you'll go the next summer to your job training.
Yeah.
And so you enlisted in the reserves as an infantryman, correct?
Correct.
LAV crewman?
LAV infantryman or LAV scout.
So kind of what's that about? I know I remember when he first told me, I mean, 10 years ago, it boggled my mind. I'm like, what do you mean? I couldn't grasp this concept. But so kind of explain to those listening what an LAV crewman, LAV scout is.
Sure. Well, let's see. I think everyone's familiar with tanks, right? So everyone has seen what a tank is. There's movies with tanks in it. There was a cool one with Brad Pitt and everything where the tank shot up everything. So an LAV is a light armored vehicle. The Army calls them strikers. It's basically like if a tank and a armored car hooked up, that would be the kid, an LAV. So it's on tires. It still has a big gun, kind of like a tank, and has a tankish, like a look. But on the bottom, it's tires, not treads, and it's a lot lighter and can float. So think about the tank and the armor car, doing it,
stuff.
and that's the result.
So I gotta cut you off real quick. I just thought of when we were getting ready for Afghanistan. We saw what was the movie that they had LEVs and you were in your glory, and the guy said, "Get to the 50 or get to the what did he say?" And he was like, "They would never say that. Yeah, that's not how that works."
Yeah, he's like, "Get to the coax" or something like that, or get to the whatever main. I don't know. I remember it was the one where they fought aliens.
Yeah, it was. You made us go. I'm pretty sure you just wanted us to.
It was
see
the one
what
where the lieutenant was like, "Lieutenant Rodriguez, 1-8, United States Marine Corps, hoorah!" And then he takes out the thing and he blows up all the aliens.
Oh, as you would say, such a cheeseball.
It's a pretty cheese dick movie. Yeah.
All right, so you go. You're doing this 90-day reservist thing.
Yeah.
You come back to school. You're training. You're going to school.
Mm-hmm.
You finish, and what do you get your degree in?
I got my undergrad degree in social science and then went directly into a master's program at Towson to become a teacher, like literally 3 days after.
Okay. And what year is all this?
Dick. He knows
I have somewhere I'm going with this.
Yeah, I know. He knows the answer. This was 2001. This is summer 2001 when I graduated.
So you enlisted in the Marine Corps prior to 9/11.
Correct. 1999 was when I actually...
Wow.
Get that! Don't look at me like that. Okay. You knew that.
So why the Marine Corps, right? If you're already going to college, so
right.
A lot of people that go into the military, some do it for college. I had Earl on the show a couple weeks ago, and he had said, "You know what? I'm going to use it for the college."
Yeah.
There's, we have all the branches. You yourself said you weren't cut out for construction.
No.
So, I mean, I feel like the Marine Corps is a little bit tougher than construction.
Depends,
how did you get to the Marine Corps above all the other branches?
Yeah. So construction just wasn't for me because, like, the dudes that I was around were kind of like still living paycheck to paycheck, and it was kind of like a weird lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, maybe I want to just try something else, and that's just not for me. And then I had a lot of friends graduate. Two of my best friends, Charlie and Matt, went straight to the Marine Corps active duty out of high school. And they liked it, but they didn't always they liked the work stuff, like the actual fun stuff, but they didn't like the administrative stuff and all the inspection stuff. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about? I also have a cousin who was like the guy I always hung out with, my cousin Jerry, who went to the Marine Corps Reserves. He was in Desert Storm, and he was a Marine. He had told me about his experience. He had a great experience. An uncle who was in Vietnam. So I had a history of service in the family, grandfather in World War II, both grandfathers. But the Marines, when you try to be a tough guy and you're a football player and all that, you want to go to the hardest branch. And so the Marines are obviously
so it wasn't just to lose, chubby weight.
It was all right. So it was partially to lose chubby weight. Yeah.
chubby Chris.
Yeah. I mean, I came back and let's just say I did pretty well.
Yeah.
I did well. When people saw me, it was a total transformation. I actually had an unfortunate streaking accident before I left for boot camp. So it kind of erased all that.
Fat Chris did streaking.
So I was at a huge concert, and it was outdoors. It was in the spring, so spring weather. It's a little crazy. It was pretty rainy and cold that day. So it was very cold and very rainy, and so people dared me to streak, and then I was like, no. And the next thing you know, there's like a bigger crowd yelling, "Gonzo!" And so I pulled down my pants, and I was like, yeah. And then If you remember the Seinfeld episode, I was in the pool.
I was in
Oh man, that little scared turtle. He was plastered all over. There was
man.
no in 1999. There
Phones
was no
had
cell
cameras back
phone.
then?
No, but there were Kodaks.
They were
The sororities had the scared turtle up on their
It
their
took 2
refrigerators.
weeks for the pictures to come out, but
Oh, sweet baby Jesus. It was terrible. And so coming back from boot camp real skinny and jacked definitely erased that memory.
So you enlisted in 1999 and you went to boot camp in 1999?
Yep.
Let's talk about boot camp. What was that like? Especially because, I don't know. I enlisted after 9/11.
Right.
And, talking with Earl and whatnot, I think there was a difference the day before 9/11 to the day after.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously the Marines are different from all the branches in that every Marine's a, rifleman. Everyone's trained to be a warrior.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what you're going to do in the Marine Corps for a job, but I'd surmise to say that after 9/11, our training, the boot camp I went through had a way different meaning
tone,
than
yeah.
you because, there's conflicts all over the world, but you
Right.
didn't go in going, I'm going to war. I mean, I remember at boot camp going, it's when I get out, some point in my career,
you're
I
gonna-
know I'm going to a
Yeah.
country to do something.
Right.
Right. So what was boot camp like?
So boot camp wasn't, I mean, it was still very intense. And I think as the time has gone through, all the eras will say, oh, it's for pussies now. Because when I was in, it was hard and now it's not.
You also had to shine your boots, right?
You had to shine your boots. Yeah. There weren't the brown boots. They were actually
I don't know what
black
that's like.
boots, and you had to shine them and you had to press your camis, and, there was the tricolor camis and everything. So I am showing my age here, but
Did you at least have a name tape? It said Gonzalez on it.
Yeah,
right?
it said
you weren't
Gonzalez,
that
US
old, right?
Marines.
Remember they used to have just the U.S. Marines?
I didn't remember that. I mean, I'm not that old, man. I wasn't in the 80s. I wasn't doing a boot camp and training with Clint Eastwood on Heartbreak Hill.
We met him later.
All right, so let's see. So I didn't know. I was used to growing up in an area where there was all kinds of different people. We all just got along. Like it was just it wasn't always a big deal. As you go into boot camp, I think it's just this weird social experiment where you have all these different dudes coming in and they kind of have an idea what to expect, but they really have no idea what to expect. Mm. And they understand the videos they've seen, the bullshit that like their recruiters told them. And they understand what they're committing to, but they don't necessarily understand how that component of 3 months is going to truly change their lives, right? Because you go in, I thought, I went in and I thought, oh, I'm going to be a hard ass. My friends went in. I know what to expect. I'm so cool. And then as you go in, you're all about yourself. You're all about yourself. You're all about yourself. And then you realize, well, fuck, if I keep doing this all about myself thing, it's going to make it harder because there's some other screw ups. So maybe I should work with some of the screw ups. And an example of that is there's two dudes on, for listeners who are in the military, there's two dudes on a bunk bed called a rack, right? You got the top one and the bottom one. They don't sleep with each other. There's two separate beds, by the way.
Thank you for
Marines do some
clarifying.
gay stuff, but I just want to clarify.
Thank you for clarifying.
Not that gay.
84%.
But every single time that your rack mate screwed up, you also were punished too. Mm-hmm. So every time your group, whether it's the person that you shared a bunk bed with or a larger group, every time one screwed up, you all screwed up. And so your behavior and your performance was not just yourself; it was everybody. So as you start doing that, you had dudes from the bad neighborhoods, of places like Baltimore or Detroit. You had dudes from the backwoods who had deep Southern accents. You had dudes who were from really rich areas. You had dudes from like New York and everything who all their Yankees gear and you had people from everywhere.
It was just a hodgepodge.
It was a hodgepodge of people. They didn't place people, it wasn't like Society Day, and they didn't say, okay, this one needs this amount of diversity or that. When people got there, they went to boot camp. There's no questions. There's no divvying up. You're placed into a group because when you get there.
You all signed up the same day.
And no one cares.
Yeah, and it was either learn to work as a team or fail. and
Exactly
literally just die
right.
because they'll kill you.
Exactly right. But you know, if you think about society today, you have different components that you have to pass to graduate boot camp, right? And there's no, oh, well, you were privileged and rich growing up. You don't have to do this. Or, oh, I know you didn't grow up with the same resources as someone else, so you don't have to do this. You could sit this one out. There's no looking down on everybody or looking up on anybody. Everyone's just treated like a dickhead by the drill instructor.
Pieces of shit.
But you're going to do it.
Yep.
There's no substitutions for this or whatever. You're going to do it. It's just not going to graduate.
Yeah.
Whether you can't shoot or you can't swim or you can't do this, you can't run or you can't climb something. I couldn't climb a rope. You know what I mean? I was a bigger fella. I
have
couldn't
this
climb
mental
a rope.
image in my head of you trying to climb the rope.
Yeah.
Oh Christ! What's the movie with Gunny? Gunny
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't climb a rope because I also wouldn't figure out the leg part. So I was trying to do it with my upper body, and I wasn't strong enough because I was a bigger guy at the beginning of boot camp. And so and I'm just frustrated. I'm down on myself. So then I started working with another guy who was showing me not a drill instructor, but another recruit who was showing me the actual technique. So I got it. Not only that, but I worked more on my pull-ups, which means I did my upper body. But I didn't know that dude. You know what I mean? I didn't know him at all. He didn't have to help me. But the fact is we can't do things unless we do them together.
Absolutely.
And people were forced in this situation to work together. And no one gave a shit if people were white, black, Latino, Asian. No one gave a shit about that. We just did it because we knew if we just wanted to get out of there.
The quickest way is to graduate.
And the quickest way is to graduate, not screw up. And the quickest way to not be hazed the entire day is to not screw up. But again, imagine if society, if something happened to you, all Jews got punished. There was a consequence for all Jews or all Puerto Ricans or whatever, or all Marines or all police officers or whatever. You would think about your behavior that much more if you knew that your behavior and your performance reflected on everybody else, and you knew that no matter what, you should go out of your way to help the other person because it benefited you as a group to perform better. So you just stop fucking caring about all those characteristics that are in our faces today. We just do it.
So you graduate and you go back to your reserve unit. You finish schooling. Once you get your teaching degree,
Yeah.
do you begin teaching before your first deployment? Are you a teacher at that point, or did you deploy? How'd that work out?
So let's see. I graduated. It was a year program, so I graduated 2002. 9/11 happened literally my first day of teaching something.
Oh, wow.
So because it was an accelerated 1-year master's program, I was student teaching. It was education. I was student teaching, and they got us in the classroom and got us teaching pretty quick. So it was literally the very first day that I taught something. So I'd spent a couple of days prepping for it, and I'm all ready for it, and I did it, and it was in the morning, it was the first period, and I did my thing, and I was in my mentor teacher ended up leaving, and I saw all kind of stuff in the hall, but it was always stuff in the hall. He left, and I did my thing. I thought I did very well, and at the end of the class, he comes back, and he has this really messed up look on his face. I'm like, oh shit, what did I do, man? Did I say something stupid? I knew I shouldn't have said it.
Yeah, did
I drop the F-bomb? I didn't even know it. But sure enough, 9/11 happened, and it was actually that weekend was my reserve drill weekend. And so as soon as we get there, the commanding officer and the sergeant major addressed the unit. They're like, we're going to war, we're going to war. So we're all like, okay, oh shit, that's what we're going to do. This is real. And that's 2001. This is September 14th, 2001. And then, we didn't get anywhere until 2003.
Took a little bit longer.
Every single reserve, we're going to war, we're going to war. I don't know when, we're going to war. Get your shit together. Yeah. So they did force us to do all of these things get our wills together and get, additional healthcare checks up and all this stuff. But I started to drift off from my schoolwork and stopped doing a good job on my assignments, and I stopped carrying on a lot of things. And my advisor had to actually say, hey, I know your situation, but you've either got to do your stuff right or just drop out.
Yeah.
Because you can't do this half-ass thing. So that was the best feedback. I think one of the best feedbacks I've gotten as a young guy. And so she let me make up a lot of my assignments, and then I graduated, and then I got hired at Howard County, Maryland, and then taught at Murray Hill Middle School, and that was 2002-2003 school year.
Okay.
So when I got hired, I did tell the principal, I was like, listen, I don't know what this means, but I am in the Marine Corps Reserve.
Don't know if you can tell by my suit. But
I don't know if
I'm
you
a
can tell by my suit, but I'm kind of a big deal, and I'm a Marine part-time. And so she hired me with the understanding that if something really did happen, and so sure, the first part of 2002 from, I don't know, July or August to the end of the year, nothing really happened. And then sure enough, President Bush made the decision to go into Iraq. They decided to get our company to attach to an active duty unit. We were part of 3rd Light Armor Reconnaissance Battalion out of 29 Palms, California. I'll try not to use acronyms. Guys, we were Bravo Company, 4th LAR, and then we became Echo Company, 3rd LAR. And by 2003 February, we were deploying. We were getting ready to deploy to Iraq.
Now, what was the notice from? I mean, obviously, come September 11th, I mean, it could be any time,
right?
But when you get the frost call, and for those who don't know what a frost call is, essentially in the reserves, when someone from a unit says, "Hey, we're getting deployed," what was the time frame from that call till you were on active duty now?
So it's hard because every time they said, we really do think it's coming, it was kind of like the boy who cried wolf. Like, all right, but it's a year and a half later. You keep telling us this. We're ready mentally, but I'm not quite believing everything. Mm-hmm. So sure enough, I think, I think it was that Monday was President Bush's State of the Union address. It was like late January. That Monday, my platoon sergeant called me, and he said, I'm serious about this. On Thursday, I think I'm going to call you, and I'm going to give you an official frost call to let you know we're officially called up and activated. So just know that. So Monday, I'm like, all right, I think maybe this is real.
Right.
Like, don't you?
It could happen.
Don't you go screw with me here. So I told my principal. She was like, all right, well, if it's not official, let's not let everyone know yet. So then, sure enough, Thursday night, I got the call, and he was all serious. He was reading from a script. I know it because he was a goofy guy. He's a Marine. We're not serious in this. We really, really have to be. So he called me. He let me know, and I said, all right. So Thursday night, late January, Friday, I came in and I told everyone. That was kind of a cool day because everyone, a lot of people had questions, and so instead of teaching, I just taught to the kids. A lot of them were, I don't know. I mean, a lot of them, they were 8th graders.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them were like they'd seen movies about maybe Vietnam or this or that. So they kind of had an idea what war could be. So we just talked and BS with them a little bit. And so after that, took the weekend. And then that Monday morning, I had to report into Frederick, Maryland. And I think we spent a week in Frederick doing administrative stuff and doing family stuff. And I was young at that time. It was 2003, so I was 24, I think, years old.
Were you single?
Single, no kids, no girlfriend, no nothing at the time. So, I was kind of like, all these other guys are like hugging their wives and like kissing their kids. And like, okay, guys. Like,
get on the bus. Let's go. Come on.
Like, guys, I'll go early. Come on. Like, you just take it forever here. Like, say effing goodbye already. This is taking too long.
So then we're so passionate, Chris Gonzalez, everybody.
And then we went to Lejeune for a while, and we finished up shots. We finished up all of our anthrax vaccines, which was a lot of fun. That was sarcasm. And all the other smallpox things. Smallpox put us down for days.
Smallpox was terrible.
That sucked a big fat D. And for 2 days, everybody felt like they were going to die. And then we came, I don't know, maybe we spent about 2-ish weeks at Lejeune, and I had offered, I was a corporal, so I was offering to do something, and so I was into fitness, and so I had offered to be the fitness NCO for the
Of course you
platoon.
were. Now you weren't Fat Chris.
Yeah, I was not Fat Chris, and that plays into our experiences together with how I hazed the hell out of you guys.
All coming together now.
Yeah. So the platoon sergeant gave me
You tried to haze us.
But he gave me full reign, and this was a young, really in shape Chris Gonzalez, and we didn't know, we thought we were going to get gas, and so we had gas masks and gas drills all the time. So we're doing wind sprints and gas masks and everything, and it was god awful. I mean, dudes were puking in gas masks and everything. But I was loving it. And now as an older guy, there were some older dudes that were like 30s, maybe close to 40. Like if someone did that to me now, I would beat the shit out of me. I would be so mad. Some young overzealous 20-year-old did that. I'd be so mad.
So you make your way over to Iraq and
Kuwait forever, forever.
But you find yourself in the invasion.
In the invasion.
What's that like? Tell me about the invasion.
It felt like one of the most disorganized things you will ever go to. So we stayed, war is kind of this really weird thing, right? So again, you have no frame of reference because none of your leaders had been to war. You might have had a couple that had been to, maybe 3 people in our unit had been to Desert Storm, but was that really combat? No, nothing against the Desert Storm guys, nothing at all. But could you compare that to a Vietnam? I don't think so. Not one bit. So there's no frame of reference. So you get there and you're like, all right, yeah, we're in Kuwait, we're in country, lock and load. And then we're like, oh, this is like a massive desert, and there's like miles before we get to Iraq.
There's no one here.
There's nothing happening here. Okay, calm down. And then we get all these missions and say, all right, our unit is to do this and do that. We may take heavy casualties. We're supposed to meet, like 200 Republican Guard and all this stuff. And that Republican Guard was Saddam's, well-trained people. And so different pieces of area is where we were supposed to go. And they're all telling us, high casualties. And so mentally, you got to prepare yourself. Like I mentally prepared myself that I would not come back. I mentally prepared myself for everybody around me getting killed, my good friends. I did all that shit. And it really took a while to do that.
But
I think in the end,
a young 20-year-old.
A young 20-year-old, yeah, exactly. But also, again, I didn't have a daughter that I had to come back to or a significant other, or.
It's still, you essentially made peace with, you're never coming home to your home or seeing your family,
Right.
This is where I die.
Yeah, this is where I die. And I'm gonna go out like friggin' Billy the Kid type stuff. If I'm gonna go out, it's gonna be good. Like I'm gonna have like at least 2, maybe 3 guns in my hand. My penis might be shooting at the same time as I am.
Not like someone we know that.
Yeah,
one just pulled off one round. Yeah, no, pulled off one round.
Yeah,
and then just said what?
Yeah, I might be trying to shoot as many guns as possible. That was my plan, but nah, man. So it's you get there and then in the actual invasion itself, you're like, oh yeah, here we go, and you got this amazing amount of adrenaline. And for probably 2 days, we didn't see anything. There's nothing. And it's just like, oh, we're going here. I'm like, all right, yeah, let's go. Be alert. And you're like alert as shit. You're like looking around and you're seeing some random shepherd like, I'm going to smoke that dude. And he's like, no, don't smoke that dude.
No, he's not a bad guy.
Right.
See those sheep?
Right.
He's raising them.
He's a shepherd. He's totally fine. Yeah, but you're like so amped up and you're just like, I don't know, it's such a tease. And you go here and you get these mission briefs and you're like, oh yeah, we're getting into it. And as a young guy, you're like ready. And it's just like a big disappointment every time. And so that builds a complacency. And so even when you actually get into combat, it's still like, it's a pretty brief period compared to what you see in the movies. It takes forever in the movies. In real life, it's a really brief period.
So what was the time frame between, coming into Iraq, you're doing all these here, and it seems like you're kind of just going from point to point looking for the fight, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Making your way further into Iraq. What's the time frame from crossing the border to your first firefight?
I should have looked at my journal.
Oh, the journals.
It's a journal. It's not a diary. Diary's way too gay. Journal. It's a journal. Dudes, don't keep diaries. Sorry if there are any British people listening, but
there was last episode actually.
Diary. I don't remember. It was probably a solid week before we actually got into a true firefight, more than just little stuff here and little stuff there. Because
A couple pop shots. Like,
I mean, guerrilla warfare was the Iraqis weren't that dumb.
Yeah.
Like they knew they weren't going to face us head on. So pop shots here and there, and like guerrilla warfare type stuff. So if they hit us from here, hit us from there, and that was that. It wasn't a real firefight because you couldn't find anywhere to really hit. And so I don't know. It was a week until we got into a bigger skirmish, and it was tough because we found tanks and we found people shooting at us. And there was a lot of hesitancy because people were scared that it was blue on blue.
because they look like our tanks.
Because they kind of look like our tanks and everything. And not just ours as Marines, but maybe ours as Army.
And I'm
telling
sure
you,
there was a lot of disorganization.
We made, at one point, we were supposed to go to this one airfield, Safwan Airfield. If anyone was in 2003, they know exactly what I'm talking about. We literally went there, 3/4 there, and did a massive U-turn on one of the major roads in Iraq. An entire
Just kidding,
battalion.
guys.
I think
It's
maybe
battalions. That's probably like that convoy's got to be like what, 10 miles long?
it's a massive convoy. It might have even been the division. I can't even remember who was there. I know at the minimum it was an entire battalion of LAVs, and we did like a massive U-turn. And the whole time I'm just like this impatient young guy, like, "Argh!" Like you remember the movie Jarhead?
Yeah.
You remember how he was in how Jake Gyllenhaal was in Jarhead?
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, let me fight. Yeah. And he's all excited about it and just pissed off when he can't. That's how I felt. That's how I felt like let me do it. And like, I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to do the worst things possible. I hope I don't ever have to like shoot a kid or shoot an innocent person or something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm literally willing to do anything to protect the people to my left and my right.
Yeah.
And then it's like disappointment. And it pissed me off.
So that first firefight, or I mean, was that one of the bigger ones, or did you find yourself as the deployment progressed, the fighting got more intense, or as it, I guess, the longer you were in country, the more I'm hesitant to say organized the logistics of movement got. But as you progressed in your time there, did you, the battalion, division, kind of figure things out so you weren't as skeptical about, oh, are they us? Are they the enemy? And you got to a point where it's like, oh, bad guys, boom.
Yeah. There were a few altercations, firefights, where we knew we were fighting bad guys. Mm-hmm. And it really wasn't massive groups of bad guys. It was people that were well placed. It was smaller groups that were well placed. And we fought. So I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 really good ones. Let's see, February, I think we went in in March, April, May. By like Easter time, President Bush had declared the war as won, and things were pretty much stable.
17 years later.
Yeah, 17 years later, we're still playing with them. But it had gone, I guess you could say it had gone from combat operations to stability operations.
So that was a thing back then?
It wasn't an official thing.
Okay.
It wasn't an official thing the way that you know it. It was more like I went from a fighter to, I guess, in essence, a police officer.
Okay.
Right? Because what happened then was you have a group of people that are used to being put in line, extremely put in line. Mm-hmm. Like people didn't step out of line with Saddam. Say what you want about him, he's a bad dude, but people didn't step out of line with him. So now all of a sudden people have this freedom and they don't know what to do with it. And so you got a ton of looting and you got a ton of, we kind of took over, we commandeered a couple of Saddam's palaces and everything for our own bases. But for the most part, like anything of value, no one had anything for the most part. And so people wanted that. And so if Saddam wasn't there, his people weren't there, there was no like backlash. So it was kind of, I won't say the Wild West, but it was a lot. Most people were still in line. They stayed in line, but you still had more people who were just trying to get for themselves. You know what I mean? And who didn't quite understand rule of law, because the only rule of law was Saddam with true iron fists. And so now we were trying to come in and keep order and keep this American rule of law, an American order, which is treating people fairly and just. And sometimes it didn't always work, you know what I mean? And so, like, we tried to do that, and people understood, and they exploited it. And now I think bad actors came in, and they exploited that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you do this, your deployment was 9 months?
It was about 9 months. I think we were supposed to go home with 3rd LAR in July, and then 4th LAR ended up getting deployed. And they say, oh, why don't you guys come join us again? And so we're like, oh, great. And so from July to September, and then we ended up getting home in September.
Okay. So during your time, did you lose any Marines or take any casualties, like in your direct, I know it's a division's huge, but like anybody you knew or
there was
like
one
that?
dude. Yeah, there was one dude in our company that got killed. And what happened was, there was a guy named McDonald. And what happened was there was a firefight. His platoon was quick reaction force. So they were reacting to the actual firefight. This wasn't our unit, it was a different unit. They were trying to get there, and they were using an unimproved road. So it was like a sand gravel road. I can't remember how many tons the LAV weighs, but it's significantly more than a truck. And so the road gave out and ended up tumbling over. It hurt he was with McDonald and the platoon sergeant were in there. Platoon sergeant got hurt real bad, had to get flown home, but lived. And then McDonald died. So the vehicle crushed him. It wasn't through direct combat.
Wow.
So no one actually died through direct combat except for McDonald.
Okay. Now, so you come home, and you go. What's coming home like now? Talk about that.
I don't know. It was just a weird experience. Like, I guess because you're young and you're so like, you're used to change. It wasn't that bad in terms of, for me, it wasn't. Because in my mind, I had already, I left, and that was the last time I said goodbye to my parents. My parents are listening. I'm sorry. I told you total opposite.
I promise I'll come back.
Yeah, dude, I totally
I'm
lied.
not coming back.
I did. I totally lied to them. And I'm like, yeah, I'll be back. It's not even going to be that dangerous.
That's just Iraq. It's no worse than downtown Baltimore. Come on.
All right. I know I live in Baltimore. You should be more worried about that. But we came back, and, I don't know. I just partied a lot, and I was looking forward to getting back to work. I'm like, wow, I made it back. I didn't think I was. And so I think I tried to take the lows, highs and lows, and I tried to put all the lows in front.
Okay.
And front load the lows and come to grips with all the lows. So when I came back, I was like, okay. And I'll be honest, a lot of people in my company, we honor McDonald and all that stuff, but I knew him, and I had conversations with him, but I can't say he was truly like a good friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you and I, we'll get into that later,
Yeah.
but if I would have lost someone who was a good friend, I probably would have had a different returning experience, but I didn't.
Okay. So you come back, you go back to teaching, and
well, they had a huge parade.
Oh, let's not forget
Which
about
I
the
was
pomp
on
and
the
circumstance.
news, yes, yes.
There's a
Yes.
framed news article.
There's a framed news
your
article.
house.
There's a big mural to Chris Gonzalez. Keep in mind, I think we're on video, but keep in mind I was single at the time, so that worked out pretty well for me. So that all that was a great experience, and so it was a great like segue back into civilian life, and I'm ready, and I all kinds of new adventures with teaching and everything, and I always liked being a teacher. I loved it, and so I had a ton of money saved up too, and so I'm like, there's a lot of pluses here, right?
War is amazing.
I might have had a great.
I should go back.
Yeah, I went to Vegas right before I went back to teach. I mean, I took a little time off to vacation. I went to Vegas. I lived like a baller, and instead of my mother says, "Hey, this was 2003. Think about the housing boom." Well, you might be too young at the time.
I was still in high school.
You were still in high school, Dick.
Yeah.
But the housing boom was like
drive at that point.
04-ish to 06, 7 had slowed down. Either way, I had a ton of money, or a nice chunk of money I could have put down on a house. My mother was like, buy a house in
But you went to
Baltimore.
Vegas.
But I went to Vegas. So
At least you didn't buy the Mustang with the 17% APR, you know.
I did not, but
Because,
I
hey,
could
that's a
have.
deal.
I could have bought a house, and I could have made a much smarter investment. And so I that was one of the dumber things that. Oh, the regret. You asked me if I had a regret. That would have been the regret. Well, maybe not. 'cause
Buying the
Vegas was
house
fun.
would have been the regret, or
My regret is not making that investment as a young dude and turning 20,000 to 250,000 because houses
yeah.
boomed in Baltimore. And if I would have just kept it, even if I would have bought a crap hole house, which I was used to living in,
Yeah.
and packed 3-4 dudes in there,
Yeah.
we could have paid the
Make Chris Gonzalez happy.
yeah.
What so during your time in Iraq, what was, I guess, the most memorable part? Is there something during that first deployment that stands out as something you're most proud of, or something that just you always reflect back to?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think, it was cool to say you've been in combat. That's a very proud thing to say, especially as Marines. We put our chest out. We're like, yeah, we're in combat. And it's funny because now I see staff NCOs and people and officers who haven't been anywhere. And so now it's good to have that feeling of I was there for a lot of those things. And I didn't sit in the back. I was in the front. But really the dumbass stuff was like the best part of it. Like the stuff that civilians will never understand.
And especially because you didn't have the phones that we have now.
We didn't have
It was
phones.
all there's some pictures that that we have, but
Yeah.
they were probably, you had to develop them, right?
You had Kodak cameras, and so you could throw out stuff that you didn't like. It didn't put it on the internet like it's dumbass.
Did you send one picture? Are you sitting on the barrel of a LAV like it's an object?
I might be sitting on the barrel. There was one where I'm humping a missile. There's one where I'm humping a UAV, a
lot of humping.
drone. Yeah, I like to hump stuff. I mean, if you're think about it. It was a missile. So everyone said that
It's a
Saddam.
missile. I mean,
Everyone said Saddam didn't have weapons of mass destruction, but we found some of his missiles, and those things were like the size of a tractor trailer.
oh wow,
And so what did I do? I humped it.
of course.
Yeah.
What? I mean,
Yeah, there's some good.
What else
good
would you
impacts.
do?
We found a ton of Saddam's gold, and somebody had stolen it, tried to smuggle it, and so
like Three Kings style, or we were. What's it? We three. What the?
yeah,
what was
Three
that?
Kings,
Three
yeah,
Kings?
yeah, Ice Cube and George Clooney. Yeah, it was a big truck full of gold. Like it was real. Like it's not the gold bars. They're gold bars. It wasn't like the gold bars you see in the movies. They weren't polished. It was real dirty, but they were gold bars. Humped that.
Of course. Anything? Is there anything in Iraq that you did not hump?
I didn't
that
hump
you wish you could, looking back.
A camel spider I did not hump.
I-
I was pretty scared of them.
Okay.
They were like aliens. Yeah, they were like the movie Aliens, legit.
It's funny. I never saw a camel spider when I was in Iraq.
Well, you were in kind of like the Hilton of Iraq.
Yeah, we were. Oh, and there was no war by that time.
No, there was.
And I'm pretty sure we're about to get in it. You had already gotten out of the Marine Corps by the time
I was.
Wait, so when you came back, how much longer did you do before you got out?
So let's see, 2003. By the time I got off active duty, it was probably October or November. Took some time. So let's say I came back in 2004. Was in a great training billet because a lot of the leadership got out. So I was still a corporal, but I was in like a staff sergeant billet for training. And we had this first sergeant who was an active duty guy, and he wasn't a fan of reserves, and so I was constantly butting heads with him. So I was planning on going back in 2005 because I knew that my unit was going to go back in 2005. And I was just butting heads with this dude, and I said, you know what? I think I'm going to take a break. I'm going to try my civilian life for a while and see where teaching goes. I had just gotten a relationship with the person I eventually married. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to take a break. So 2005, I got out or dropped to the IRR, Individual Ready Reserve, for those who don't understand IRR acronyms.
And essentially, so what that is you're still in the military. It's all the branches have it, but you're not really doing anything.
Right,
It's
no commitment.
like if we all get through all of active duty dies and all of the reserves dies, well, they're like, hey guys, remember that thing you signed?
Yeah.
We need you. And you're like, crap, I
Yeah.
don't think I can fit in this uniform anymore.
Or if you're special, they may bring you back.
yeah.
But I wasn't special enough to be brought back. So 05 to 07, I was in IRR. 2007, 2010, I was out, and then got back in 2010.
So in that time, you had gotten married, and you had a kid,
Yep,
Gabriella. Oh, broke my pen.
who we have a picture with on Instagram.
On Instagram. I it's funny, I didn't have a picture to post of her. But there's a great picture on Instagram now.
There is.
At your what is your Instagram?
Gonzalez, GONZALEZCA78.
Yeah, that's a great picture.
Yeah.
So some things happen in your relationship, and you love teaching.
Yeah.
You really found. I remember talking with you. You found that like your niche. But that caused some strain.
Well, yeah, I was always broke, and so my girlfriend and fiance, then wife at the time, she was working for a nonprofit, so she wasn't making a whole lot of money either. So like I'm struggling for money. I really enjoyed what I did, but it's like the more and more as time went on. It was frustrating to not be able to go on like fun vacations with her. But there was more and more administrative stuff that was happening, and more standardized testings that were happening. And for Howard County, Maryland, there was no standardized test for, and in the United States, there was no standardized test for social studies. But Howard County, Maryland decides to make one up just to validate social studies. And so for me, I was teaching. It was 8th grade social studies. It was early U.S. history. So it's like the American Revolution, things like that. There's no point in teaching like dates and like facts and all that stuff. That's not what social studies is about. Like I would ask people to compare George Bush or President Bush and President Washington, right? Or, General Washington at the time. Or what would happen if the Americans didn't win this battle? Will we still be part of Great Britain? So trying to get them to think critically and like,
And not just answer a test
and not just
question.
answer a stupid ass test question, which they're going to forget in a week or so.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, parents loved it, kids actually loved it because I could do anything. So I could compare like a historical figure with 50 Cent at the time who was popular, and it's cool because kids could relate that shit, and parents loved it. Like we talked about it, and we talked about current events, and I tried to come at it from both sides. So here's what this article shows you. But what if you look at it from this perspective? So it was a great critical thinking exercise that they could apply to both current events and then historical events, so they could think for themselves. But that took a while. So I can't get through an entire curriculum like that. And I had kids with learning disabilities who would still do very well because there was no real, I didn't give a lot of tests. I did more projects than tests, and I gave a lot of options with projects. And so I don't know if you want to rap about something, rap about it or sing about it. You know what I mean? If you want to draw about it, draw about it.
I really hope you didn't actually sing to them at all, because
I didn't.
For those of you who don't know,
you actually have probably not on that camera.
Oh
or that
no,
on
I
that
have
phone.
the video somewhere. What was it? 2011. I had to be. You were singing to something, doing the knee slap on the BlackBerry. You still had a
Yeah, I had a
BlackBerry, and you
BlackBerry.
were texting like this, which was weird. And you are god awful.
It's not a good. It's not a
awful.
good singing experience.
Yes, no.
I did not sing, but some kids were good, and it was a great experience. But man, it was very frustrating, and the stuff that my principal ended up hiring before was then like a bad thing, and I'm like, at some point I grew frustrated, and I grew frustrated not just with the administrative stuff, but then with the financial stuff, and I started doing real estate, and so I said, screw it, I'm just going to do real estate full time. So then I did that, and I started teaching boot camp for fitness stuff, and then I started my company, and those are the things. And then 2006 I said goodbye to teaching, did some real estate, and in 2008 I started my company.
What made you want to get back in the Marine Corps?
So this is pretty deep. This is probably the deepest thing. I don't know if we ever even talked about this. So I think before G, my daughter's name is Gabriella, so I call her G. Before G was born in 2009, August 2009, my unit had gone back, so I'd still talk to a lot of the guys in my unit. A lot of the dudes who I had trained, were now leaders in the unit. And so a dude that I remember training died in Afghanistan. And I went to his funeral, and I learned about civil affairs. And and a friend of mine, Niblick was at the funeral because Niblick was from my old unit.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And he told me about civil affairs, and he was like, if you do that job well enough, a lot of times the violent activity in your area, your district, goes down, and that means a lot of Marines come home to their kids. And I thought to myself, wow, like I got a lot of, and it was basically like management consulting, what I do in the civilian sector. And so I'm like, if I can take that expertise and apply it to my knowledge of infantry, and if I can go somewhere and I can help some like Marines, if I can do something to one, put Afghans in a better spot than they were already, and also help Marines come home to their kids, what better example could that ever be to my daughter than to be like that's the example I need to set as a fucking father.
Yeah.
And as a human being to everybody else. Like, if I don't do this, like, what kind of a piece of shit am I?
You have the opportunity to help someone, and you're like,
Not just someone, but like larger groups of people. Like, what if what I did affected Afghans, and they became leaders of Afghanistan? And what if what I did meant that other people came home to their Gabrielas?
Yeah.
And it's stuff like that would just eat at me. And I tried to communicate that with my wife at the time. It ended up being the death of our marriage. But I tried to tell her she thought I was being selfish. Honestly, we had a lot of arguments. I had a lot of arguments with her family, with my family. And they were all like, what are you doing? And I'm like, you guys are not understanding. Like, if you think I'm being selfish.
It was bigger than just you.
Yeah. And they're like, you have bigger responsibilities. And I'm like, do I though? Like, do I?
Yeah.
I have bigger responsibilities just by doing this. And like, I can stay home and be a coward, in my opinion, and tell her to be brave and tell her to be, to sacrifice things, and then not be the fucking real person that does it.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, I can't ever be with that,
So you make your way back into the Marine Corps, back into the reserves again. Now it's civil affairs, and that's where we meet.
But before that, hold on. I got to tell you the story about the little Haitian guy. Did I ever tell you the little Haitian guy story? Do you remember that story?
When you sent that to me, I thought you were talking about Raph. I did, because that's just what pops into my head.
No.
That's why I wasn't going to bring it. I'm like, that'll come up, but
no,
I'm
wasn't
glad
Raph.
you brought that up, because
it wasn't Raph. Honestly,
okay.
This is probably the most life-changing story I've had out of random times. So I've been working with a veterans group on the Eastern Shore, and basically what they were doing was they were taking people off the streets, cleaning them up, and they were getting them technical skills to get them back into the workforce and all that stuff. And what they needed was a group home, a large area where we can house these people, clean them up, keep them accountable, and then get them the skills they need and the training they need to get back to the workforce. So I kind of helped him raise a little bit of money, and he invited me to the grand opening of this space that they got, this house. And so I go to this grand opening, and he announced that they had raised a couple $100,000, and they didn't even need it because this little Haitian guy had donated the property. It's probably a 20-room house.
Oh, wow.
And so they brought this Haitian guy up. He's this little unassuming guy. And he said, sir, please tell us why you donated this space instead of making us pay for it. He said, as a young boy in Haiti, it was it was very dangerous, and my family was very poor. We had nothing. And the Marines came in, and they kept us safe, and I swore that one day I would pay them back.
Oh, wow.
And that dude paid them back. Because of that, he then took his, then came to the United States. He then invested in properties. He probably owned about 50 properties on the Eastern Shore of Maryland.
Wow.
And was very wealthy. And sure enough, instead of selling us that instead of selling that nonprofit that property, he gave it to him, and he's been a big supporter since.
That's awesome.
That's awesome, and and at that time I'm going back and forth, and people are like, "What are you going to do? Like, are your efforts really going to make a big difference?" You know what I mean? They give you that shit.
That's kind of it right there.
Exactly.
You could have that Haitian impact in Afghanistan.
Exactly right. Like, what if my selflessness then pays forward to the next and the next and the next? And what if, not only am I showing that And not only am I doing that and influencing people in a good way, but again, I'm trying to show my daughter that it's not just about what you say; it's that your actions are more important.
Actions are louder than words.
But that little Haitian guy, I don't know his name. I swear to God, I probably could find out his name if I really got back with the dude, because every now and then I'll connect with him on LinkedIn. But that story changed my life.
Well, if anybody listening out there knows a Haitian real estate investor on the Eastern Shore,
On the Eastern Shore of Maryland,
apparently a little Haitian dude.
He's an amazing person, man.
Can you
I don't
reach
even
out?
know
Let's
him.
get his
The dude
information.
literally saved, not just saved, but changed my life. And from then on, I was like, I'm going back and I'm going to go to Afghanistan and I'm going to do this job. Q second
So
civil affairs
because of
group.
the Haitian guy, we meet.
We meet.
Now, I mean, I remember the way I got to civil affairs was I came back from Iraq and we didn't fight. We got to do route clearance, which was awesome. It was me and Devin were moved to the combat engineer platoon because in the great wisdom of the reserves, going back to this whole disorganization, they said, "Oh, you're a cop and a fireman, right?" We're like, "Yes." And they go, "Well, then you'll be good at medicine and tactical stuff. So you're going to go with route clearance and do that." I'm like, "That's the dumbest thing I ever heard," but whatever. And I really enjoyed being outside the wire. You know, we didn't fight. The war was. I mean, we tried.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, did we try and piss
Yeah.
them off? And it's funny because all the stuff we did over there is really anti-civil affairs.
Yeah.
But when I came back, I realized I needed more. I said, all right, now I never went in the Marine Corps to be an infantryman. I didn't have a desire not to fight. That wasn't a reason I wanted to be a Marine.
Yeah.
And now I said, I got to know. I
Yeah.
can't, I need to know. And a fireman I worked with at the time in Medford, he was a warrant officer for the civil affairs program.
That's right.
And he explained to me, you attach to the infantry, you get to fight, but you have to be a subject matter expert on the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And once the bullets stop flying, you come into work and you keep the bad guys out.
Yeah.
And I said, how do I get there?
Yeah.
So we get down there, we meet. Now I met you, Christ, I think I was 22, maybe 23.
Yeah.
I think we just picked up corporal, maybe. Either we're just about to pick up corporal, but
I think you both got promoted
Yeah.
at the unit.
yeah, we were like one of the few lance corporals to come to civil
Yep.
affairs at that time.
Yep.
I don't know. Someone messed up that paperwork, but
They just needed bodies at the time because they were deploying so
And-
quick.
we get I remember my frost call was Master Guns or Master Sergeant Hauser.
Hauser.
He calls me and he goes, "You want to go to Iraq in a couple weeks or Afghanistan in a couple weeks?" I said, "Sure." He goes, "All right, you're on team 1." I was like, "Cool."
Yep.
And he probably gave me a hoorah, and I'm like, "Oh, God."
How about that guy?
And then so our team gets together. What was I guess your initial thoughts when you saw me and Devin? Well, I mean, our team. You being the only one, but Rusty had combat experience.
Rusty had a Purple Heart. Yeah.
I mean, well, sir, don't get out of the tank because it's bulletproof and they're shooting at us. No,
Yeah.
but I want to see something. Oh crap!
I
I
know.
got shot.
Yeah.
Love you, Rusty, but he had seen some combat. But aside from him, you were the only other one there. We were very green, and it was me and Richie were the only ones with deployments. What was your initial thought? We're going to Afghanistan.
Let's see. What did I think? So our team, for those who need a frame of reference, our team I think was about 10.
we were about 10.
We had 2 officers. One was the leader. One was the assistant leader. The leader was the one with combat experience. The assistant team leader was quite a character.
We love him.
We love him.
Oh boy, do we love him.
We had Hank, who was the team chief, and myself as the assistant. I ended up becoming the team chief because Hank had to leave for some administrative reasons. We had Einstein. We had Riccio. We had another guy in the unit who was almost probably close to 50 years old, and he was a sergeant, and he was very breakable. Good dude, but very breakable. We had a female who reminded us that she was female very often. We had another very young guy who was lazy as shit.
It's a very interesting team.
And I guess that's it. Am I forgetting?
No, that
anyone
was
on
it.
the team?
That was the team.
So the young guy. I won't use names, but the young guy was kind of like, yeah, I'll go to combat. Sure. Can I go back to sleep for a second?
Now, mind you, for those listening, like civil affairs, they in the Marine Corps they attach directly to infantry units, and it's not you don't attach to a unit and then you're hidden, behind enemy lines and you get brought out after the dust clears and all that. No, you're with the platoons, you're right on the line, and you're expected to pull the weight just as an infantryman is.
Right.
And we were initially supposed to attach to Bravo Company, 1st Battalion, 9th Marines.
Correct.
And
That's who we train with.
We train with them.
Palms, California.
And I think we saw in the training pretty quickly that, look, we saw the reality of where we're going.
Yeah.
And because, these are professional infantrymen.
Yeah.
And we all came from various backgrounds in the reserves with all types of life experience.
Yeah.
And I think some had
no clue what to do with us.
And some, had heart and whatnot, but it was apparent very quickly that, I don't know, I wouldn't have wanted to be in your shoes knowing that our team's going over to fight the enemy we were about to go fight.
We had some weirdly weird dynamics. Like the old guy, he wanted nothing to do with combat or anything. He was just kind of there to, perhaps he was just kind of there. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
The young guy was also just kind of there. The female was just there to declare she was a female. And then you had Rusty and I, who were, both combat, and we were, I think we understood what was going to happen, and we're trying to take it slow as smooth as fast. Hank was just kind of going with the flow, and Raph was just kind of going with the flow, and that's why they became buddies. And then you had you and Devin, who were like, you were just ready to get after it. And it's hard because in no way as a leader do you want to you don't want to fight enthusiasm of young Marines because you were like, yeah, let's train. And you guys were both ready to get out in the field and do training and attach to the units and get as much stuff in as you can and learn as much as you can. And that's exactly what you should be doing. But you're also eager to go to combat. And that's when I kept telling you guys, just be careful what you're asking for. Be careful what you're asking for because it's cool, but there's complications with it.
Yes,
there's complications with it.
So we're doing the workups, and we look back and I know we've talked about this a lot. Our team, for as weird of a hodgepodge again as it was, if any one of those people were replaced by someone else from our unit,
they just screwed it up.
It would the way it flowed and the stories we have and the stuff that we did
and drank.
And, we made the best of it, and it was very interesting because just like I think boot camp, right? You're forced into this. This community of people you have no idea, you've never met before, and then all of a sudden you either fail or succeed as a team.
Yeah.
And we obviously ended up getting divided up even more so, but the 10 of us met, and it was either succeed, which is pretty much come home alive, or fail, and you're coming home in a body bag.
Yeah.
And we figured it out, kind
we
of.
Did.
And we finally had that good flow, and then was it 2 weeks before we were getting ready for to actually get into country? They go, "Hey, we're splitting the team in half," or it was like maybe a week. It was not a lot of time.
I don't know.
I think we were at Quantico Viper or something.
I think we had some time to plan that out. I'm not sure if you're right about that or not.
I felt like it was.
I remember we split into two sub teams. It was going to be the Kajaki team and the Sangin team, the Upper Sangin team. And I think we prepared for that for a while.
Maybe I'm just recalling it different. Like it just felt like it came on more quickly because none of us ended up going with 1-9.
No, but if you remember, Jen and Devin paired up. I paired you with Tim,
which we fought like hell and we won.
Yeah.
You couldn't split us up.
I know. I was trying. I think Celis I paired with.
I don't know.
With Hank.
Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
I paired with Raph,
Yeah.
and then Rusty was kind of alone because he was the team leader. But I don't know what we were actually gonna do because you're right. We were planning on supporting 1-9.
And all of a sudden, the Kajaki came up and
Upper Sangin
came up.
Valley, yes.
And that was that, the move on the fly.
Yeah.
And so now, you're finally starting to see this mesh. We came together. I mean, we became like a little
Yeah.
family. We fought. We pissed Dad off a lot. You were Dad, by the way, not Rusty.
Yes.
Rusty was like the mom who just didn't know. I'm just thinking of me, you flipping my rack.
Yes. I hate when people mess with me when I'm sleeping.
But now you get close to us and we're like, all right, I know you're going, hey, I know you guys want to get into the fight, but just careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
And I imagine you're thinking, hey, I'm going to be able to watch over them for the next 9 months.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, holy crap, you're going up to Kajaki, and the two idiots that want to get into the fight the most are going completely different area than you are.
Yeah.
What's that? How did that play into your mind state?
So I guess from an organization perspective, I knew it was good for your support system to have Devin there.
Mm-hmm.
You and Devin were like, it couldn't get any closer to gay than what you were without being truly gay.
It was dabbling 85%.
It was 84.7, yes. But you guys were so inseparable, but you enjoyed being around each other.
Yeah.
And as I look at it now, as I do veteran stuff now, the support system and the importance of that is an amazing thing. And so from that perspective, it was a great move to keep you guys together. But if you remember, we thought for a long time until we got to Leatherneck, Upper Sangin Valley was going to be rough and Kajaki was going to be very, very easy. Mm-hmm. And then that one officer briefed us, that one captain briefed us. And he was like, no, Kajaki's just as bad. There's a bunch of IEDs. And we're like, okay.
All right.
And then I'm looking at it. I'm like,
And the old guy goes, ah.
And then I got the old guy, I got the young guy, and I got Raph, who was he was tough to deal with, and he was superior ranked than me, but
I guess I should say
I was still Dad.
In the civil affairs realm, there obviously we have officers enlisted, and there is respect with the ranks, but within the teams, because of what we do and how we do our jobs, it's not disrespectful to be calling them by their first names.
Yeah.
There was a time and a place. I mean, I remember when Raph got promoted, and he was so angry because he didn't want to get promoted, and he forced us. He was like, "Well, call me Skipper. Don't call me anything other than Skipper." We're like, all right, man, whatever.
He was an odd guy.
So when we say their name, like that's how close we were. It really was a small nucleus that it was. The small, like I imagine it's what these small teams. I don't want to say special forces. Oh, guys. But that's how close we were.
Yeah.
And now, not only were we split up and you having to worry about us being in the hot zone, so to speak, and now you're being told, well, oh, no, yours is just as hot. And you're going, fuck.
If you remember, we got split up, and I know you were going with Rusty. So I know at that point you were still in good hands. And I know that he would take care of you, but I was still nervous that you guys would be way too eager to get into stuff. And that was my biggest fear. And so we had limited contact with you guys, and then every now and then I would see you at Leatherneck, whatever. We had to refill money and all that stuff. Money as a weapon system, totally different podcast, but money as a weapon system is quite an interesting concept. Oh yeah. So that was good. But then, I had, when I was in one part of Kajaki, I had a lot of autonomy to go back and forth to Leatherneck. I think I might have went to visit the dead headquarters in a different part. I don't even remember what the name of that part was.
Lashkargah?
No, not.
I know you went out there.
I tried to go to Lash. I did go to Lash.
You did, because Raph went out there.
Yeah.
And he gave a briefing with an afro.
I did,
and the picture is awesome.
Well, that's right. I gave a briefing to a general. He had an afro. I had my frog gear, like down low, like straight Vinny Guido with a big tattoo on my thing. And we're giving this like high level management consulting Deloitte presentation to this general. We're like, We're like boats and hoes. Investors, maybe you point towards the general. It wasn't like that in real life, but it felt like it. And he was like, all right, we'll invade this part.
Yeah. All right, you got us.
Yeah. And
Where do we drop the bomb?
Yep. No, but there was a part of that one main road, the 611, where that disconnected where you were versus where I was. And so the decision was to clear that area. So Raph and I put together basically an economic impact analysis on if we clear that, what it would do from an economic point of view and from the dam, the Kajaki Dam point of view. So we actually gave a really good presentation, and we looked like total dickheads, but we sure did give a good presentation. And after that, he said, all right. And then they started doing the planning for the push. And then our deck commander said, all right, Gonzalez, since you pitched it, you're going with it. So our team, Kajaki, got split up even more. And I ended up taking Celis. You know, I ended up taking the young guy.
Were you with the young guy on that I don't want to say fateful day because nothing bad happened. The infamous one shot.
What was the one shot?
So the first this young Marine never been to combat at first deployment. As we said, Kajaki was a lot hotter than I think he thought it was going to be, and he was with a line platoon, and they were in like a ditch taking some pretty heavy fire.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Hey man, feel free to shoot at the bad guys whenever you want." And he's like, "All right," and holds the rifle like above his head and pulls off one round, and like. At least that's what we were told.
No, that might have.
He goes, "Did that happen? Did that work?" And I'm like, "It sounds so far fetched, but it's also that would be something he would do.
That would be something he would do. It was a Brian story.
See if the guy speaks English. Do you speak English, man? Like, come on."
He did not do that, though. I think I might have been the one who made up that actual story. But he did not do that. He was actually pretty decent under fire. We got in a couple firefights together. As I was talking to people, as I was talking to some of the locals, people shot at us, and he did all right. He wasn't anything, but he definitely wasn't. He wasn't graceful. I'll say that, but he wasn't cowardly either. So I'll at least give him that credit.
So, excuse me. So when you went to in Iraq, you had a completely different job. There was, as you said, you were part of the invading force. Then you kind of took over the role as like a police officer. And now you're in Afghanistan. That war had been on for quite some time.
Yeah.
I know you probably went in with limited intel in Iraq, basic gear. Now we have all this intel and these briefings. Like we went in pretty knowledgeable.
Yeah.
With the areas and all the stuff. I mean, I will say that I think that culture brief we did at Quantico Viper, they were a little off on their religion breakdowns.
They were a bit off.
I still to this day don't understand how there was one Jew in the entire country.
Well, I don't know where they got that number from.
Yeah, I think they messed that up. But you worked with the people and the government and government officials and whatnot.
Yep.
But you had started doing some of that back home before you came over.
Right.
So that was kind of like your bread and butter at this point.
Yep.
On top of that, now you're in combat again, which you had already faced. So it's kind of like you had experience in both before you even got the country.
Yeah.
Did that, I guess, make it easier or is there anything that you wish you could have, looking back, you said, "Oh man, I wish I did this. This would have been maybe a little bit easier," or?
No, I mean, when we got to the first part of Kajaki near the dam, it was one thing, and that was okay, but it had, I guess, somewhat of a limited role. We didn't pass a certain area because we knew a certain area was going to be a bunch of bombs and stuff like that. IEDs for those listening who know the real terms. But remember, after a few months, I was part of that clearance effort. And so during that effort, when we actually got there, those people had never really seen Americans before because we never messed with that area before.
Tell me you weren't the first American they ever saw.
I mean, I wasn't the first American. But similar to the push, when we got there, it was a lot of new stuff. And so it was a lot of trying to figure things out because there weren't teams to give us turnover briefs. It was new. So I had, as a civil affairs guy, I had a blank page, a clean slate. And so I started, doing my thing. And luckily, I had done meetings with the district governor before, and I knew some of the elders. And I went, one guy, there was this one old guy there, and he was this little guy, but he was tough looking, and he had this real loud voice, and they called him Mama, and if you remember, that was my uncle.
Yeah.
And I saw him, and I was like, hey, I know you. And we ended up becoming like these really good friends. And I knew he was totally Taliban, and he would tell me that he's like, listen, they would tell me stuff.
He dabbled.
The Taliban was there for years before us, and especially in an area where we weren't, that's the Taliban stronghold.
Yeah.
So from a political perspective, the elders in that area had to play both sides, but they didn't really cover it up. They covered it up sometimes with the grunt guys because they didn't quite get it. And they're like, listen, I don't know what you're talking about. But we would have frank conversations. They'd be like, listen, you guys are going to leave, man. We got to live in this place. So I know what you're doing is sincere. Like, we've had a lot of conversations. We've had probably 50 cups of tea together. We've laughed and we've cried together. We've become honorary Afghan brothers together. And I love those guys. But they knew we were only there for a minute. And at some point, I was going home and some other dude was going to replace me. Or maybe we were just going home in general and they had to deal with the aftermath. So, they had to play both sides. But their ability to play both sides ended up being, if you could step back from the friend full perspective, you could really get a lot of stuff done. And that's how I got a lot of stuff done was doing it. And I worked with our commanding officer who also got it really well. And I thought we did a great job. But that one little guy, and as soon as I found out what Mama meant, that's all I meant in the entire area of Kajaki. Called him Mama from then on because that's what I called him.
When you said like old guy with just like a tough look, I just thought of heavy hands.
Well, he wasn't the big. There was the two bigger guys. One real big guy. One other guy who was like an Afghan Sean Connery, and then this little scrappy dude. And you know me, I got a big loud voice. So I'm like, hey, Mama from down the street. And you would hear him with this little scratch, hey, Mama, and he would start saying stuff and in that language and everything. And so it became a fun time, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're going through that. I mean, you're doing a lot of stuff. We were doing a lot of work down south, which was interesting because, you had, you were a sergeant.
I was a sergeant.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but you were essentially you were the staff sergeant, right?
Yeah.
And you were the older, wiser gentleman, working with Raph, and then there's me and Devin down south with Doc, and that's their civil affairs guys. We're 23 years old, and we're flying by the seat of our pants. I think we did a lot of good work, and it'd be interesting to. If we could go back in time and have you there as our mentor, right? To see how things would have, if we would have done anything differently.
Yeah.
But that's how, the deployment played out. And then, you're up north, we're down south, and then August 5th happens. And
yeah, man.
How
I didn't even hear about August 5th until way later.
Yeah. What went through your mind? What happened how'd you find out? What were your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know. I don't even know. I don't even know when I actually found out. And I don't even know. It's hard for me to even think. Remind me again what the timeline was of everything.
So we go out on I think it was like a 7-day mission or whatnot, and Devin's with one group, or maybe Devin stayed home or back. We get out there, and that morning we take our first KIA. We lost Danny Gurr, and then that evening, that's when I got hurt by the grenade. I come back 2 days later, about 2 days later to Alcatraz.
Yeah.
And the team that was, when they were extracted, the helo took the hard landing into the berm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I was there for a couple days until they got me a ground medevac back to Leatherneck.
Mm-hmm.
But having civil affairs be the G3 or G9 rather, they decided it was they wanted me to be in their cans and not the actual hospital, because that made so much sense. And that was
August?
August 5th.
I don't know why, but in my mind, I swear to you, I thought it was much closer to the end of our deployment when all that stuff happened.
Yeah, August 5th.
I didn't know. So you had stayed at Leatherneck most of the time?
I was there for 3 weeks, I think.
And then you went back out?
My first mission back was September 11th.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you stayed out there the whole time, or did you come back early?
No, I stayed out there the whole time. My damn convoy never showed up. I was, I was like, I gave up my rack. Like to when what was it? First recon came in or second? First recon I think came in.
The turnover.
I said, I'm leaving like tomorrow. Here's my rack. I don't need it anymore. And then it didn't come for another 2 weeks. And I'm sitting. It's like, this is awful. I was so mad at Russ, and he was like, "I'm trying, man." I'm like, "Walk down here and pick me up yourself."
I mean, your rack was what? It was a cot.
It was a cot, but now I'm on the cold floor.
It wasn't that much better.
We didn't have heat in our tent. It was 7 degrees. I was miserable. I was really sick. And well, you know
really
me.
Sick.
You know me. When I'm tired,
you get
cranky,
a little cunty, yes.
I am not a happy person.
No.
And I knew that Richio and Doc, they were back at Alcatraz, and I was stuck. And I'm like, just get me the fuck out of here because I want to go home. I'm done. I'm not going on any more missions. Like,
what's funny is, I don't think I really grasped the situation until the very end, because I feel like Rusty was always. I don't know if I even saw you. I think I saw Devin. I'm trying to remember if I even saw you until near the end.
You may have remember Devin had to go home because his grandfather passed away. So you may have seen him. But after I left Leatherneck, the next time I came back was I think I did a 1 day turnaround, like a flight in to get cash and a flight out. But the next time I was there was when we were on our way home.
Yeah. I don't remember. It's all such a blur. It's tough for me to remember the timelines. But Russ definitely downplayed what happened with you because he didn't want me to freak out and go all dad on it. And not that I would have got mad at him. I just I know that it would have kind of weighed on me more heavily. But he was like, I kind of he's fine. So I'm like, all right, if he's going to be fine, he's getting back in the fight. No big deal. And then I remember near the end with you telling me the story, I'm like, oh, man, that's not fine. Like, you were really close to dying. Like, that's not fine, man. And because we're so separated, I didn't really grasp, like, the gravity of, like, you would have been, there was one dude who got blown up where I was that I was truly close with. And it took me a while to really come to grips with it. And I remember he was an EOD guy. For those not with the military background, that means he's a bomb technician. He was the guy who came out and took apart the bombs, balls of steel. He took apart God knows how many bombs. And sure enough, near the end of the deployment, it's always that story. Mm-hmm. Near the end of his deployment, because he was on a different schedule than myself and the unit we were supporting, he caught one that he didn't find. And he got blown up, man. And that was tough because I had gone over there to watch movies with those guys, and they had their own separate area. And he was just a legit good, like a nice guy, offered you stuff, out of the kind of his heart type guy. But I can't say that I knew him, like truly knew him. And so it didn't hit me till I saw you near the end where we were like on our way down from everything and decompressing. I was like, wow, like it wasn't a small deal. That was a massive deal. Like you could have died. Like, you had some big complications from that I didn't really grasp that even were like a thing at the time. And I kind of had a feeling that you were a little off.
He's like, he's just
your behavior was a little off, but I couldn't tell. But Devin's was a little off too.
Yeah.
Honestly, and that was one of the things that I was really worried about. And Rusty and I had talked about, like, man, we gotta watch those guys because we put you in literally the most dangerous environment possible, which is exactly what you wanted, which is exactly what we're telling you guys. Be careful what you ask for, and it changed you both. And I don't know if you changed. It's hard to tell if it's good or bad because I think you had some ups and downs. We've all had some ups and downs. But I didn't really grasp it at the time until the very end when I knew we're all going to be safe no matter what.
You know, we're all going home.
We're all going home.
You know, it's interesting when you said...
Like we did a Latin night at Leatherneck, where we're like, I can't believe these guys had the same deployment as we did. These guys are all in sweatsuits dancing merengue.
Oh my gosh, that was I think that was New Year's Eve.
That was New Year's Eve.
The you know, it's interesting. I remember, you know, when you said you had conversation with us, like, guys, I get it. You want to get in the fight. And like you said, those are the Marines like I want to see. I don't want to hold you back, but just you kind of like be careful what you wish for. And I remember the first mission that we had when we got into Alcatraz with our companies. We had done a ground insert, and you know, I was just. They said follow the guy in front of you. I'm like, okay, please don't get lost. And it's like I haven't used night vision goggles in, you know, for 6 years, and this is awful. And we finally get there, and we drop our pack, and all of a sudden there's daylight, and we're getting shot at. And I'm like, I shit myself. I remember, and we're in a compound. I am inside the compound, and I shit myself. And I'm like, wow. And I remember Chris Diaz, who ended up getting killed. He started laughing. Because I had a cigarette and I dropped it. And I shit my I'm pretty sure poop came out. And he's like, new guy. And I'm like, you've been here like 2 weeks longer than me. Come on, man. And then they hear over the radio that one of the corpsmen was shot. So they're calling for the evac, and they're like, all right, we got to go secure the LZ. I'm like, out there? They're shooting out there.
Right. You sure about that?
You said we're safe in here. And they're like, let's go. And I'm like, great. And I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
7 months of this, like, and then that night, we had to go pick up our packs from where we dropped them to go to the compound. And I think it was Marsoc botched some Illum rounds. But I was walking, we were just about to go into the compound, and all of a sudden here, shoo, boom, and I just see this big bright light. I'm like, since when do they fight us at night?
Right.
Like, really? Like, this is my first day here, and they just do, like, this is 7 months of this. And then we get into the compound, and they said, you hear shot out, and I'm like, that's not good. I don't remember much, but that means something's coming our way. And I'm like, oh God. And sure as shit, it comes right through the compound. And I remember running over there, and people are pouring out, and there's a lot of smoke. And I remember Rusty, pretty sure Rusty checked me. Like, we didn't really, I saw him, but like we didn't make contact. Like, it was just so surreal. And I'm like, I can't do 7 months of this. This is awful.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap, this is day one.
Yeah.
And I mean, it didn't get much better. but you know, what was interesting was once you got your feet wet and we actually understood the lay of the land and got to know people, like, I really enjoyed the civil affairs aspect of it because I got to do exactly what I wanted.
Yep.
The fighting and the civil aspect of being with the people and getting to know them, and just that was amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
But I mean, I remember, I guess with you in Iraq, when you kind of made your peace, I remember, you know, saying goodbye to my family in DC.
Yep.
And I think I downplayed it too. I said, like, we're good. Look at our team. We're great. And I said, this is the last time I see him.
Yep.
And I was oddly okay with that, you know? And I remember flying into...
I remember somebody telling you to do that.
What's that?
I told you to do that.
Make peace?
Yes.
And we flew into Kandahar, and that was the first ramp ceremony we ever saw.
Yeah.
They had a ramp ceremony, and that kind of started making it real.
Even though we went to
and we weren't even
TGI Fridays
close.
right after that, yes.
Yeah. And then we go to Leatherneck, and we fly out to the district center.
Yep.
And the day we got there, there was a Marine killed from, I think, Kajaki, actually.
That might have been, yeah.
And that ramp, I mean, that made it real, because that was the body bag, them carrying their brother, their bloody, they're and you see it in their faces,
Yeah.
carrying it to the Osprey, and I said, "Wow, like,
Yeah.
all right, we're here. This is it." And it was certainly an interesting 7 months.
And fast forward 10 years later, here we are.
So
Literally 10 years from-
It's I mean, yeah, it was 10 years on the 10th.
10 years from 10.
We left, and we were talking about the other night how we go to North Carolina, and we were typical Marine Corps. Hey, you're going to be here a few days.
Yeah.
So we're like, well, let's get beers and let's party on because we're about to get into it. And
Yep.
then Rusty came in. He's like, guys, get your guns.
We're
We're
leaving
going to
tonight."
Afghanistan. And I'm like,
We're leaving the night. Yep.
I wanted to get blackout drunk tonight.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Well, you and Devin were giddy little schoolgirls.
I was excited. Don't get me wrong.
You
but
were
I was like,
you were excited. I was like, oh boy, all right, let's do
Yeah.
it. It's fine. I would have preferred to, because I think we were going to go to Wilmington or
Yeah,
something.
one
like
more
that.
time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
one more time.
One
Because
more
we had some
time.
fun times with Wilmington. And, I thought we were just going to take our time because we were so independent from the rest of our detachment, the rest of our larger team.
yeah.
But it worked out, I thought, pretty well. Like, there was no waiting time. Like, there was nothing good that would have come. from waiting time.
I mean,
You'd have just gotten drunk and
we're
done
lucky
stupid
that
things.
we got away with what we did,
Yeah.
given the circumstances of some other things.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that downtime, nothing good would have, unless
No.
they had just said, here's like unlimited cases of beer. You're locked in your room until we leave. Like that would have been the only good outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I couldn't have done that. I hate sitting around and drinking. That's not terrible.
I
That's
don't
terrible.
mind. Believe it or not, I don't mind sitting around.
Yeah,
Just
that's the 30-some-year-old father.
yeah. So you come back. Obviously, a totally different war than Iraq.
Yeah.
Now, not only was the fighting different, probably a little bit more than Iraq, at least a more intimate fighting. You're not
Yeah.
in a vehicle as much.
Not in the vehicle as much, yeah.
But now you're coming back to a family.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I mean, you were the leader of our team. So when we came back, we all
Yeah.
went home. Philly and Baltimore are close, but
Yeah.
we went back to our, normal lives, so to speak.
Yeah.
How was that return to life
Yeah.
for you?
Well, I'll be honest with you, man. It's, at the time that we left, my daughter was one-ish.
Christ.
And she was talking and
Jeez.
everything, but it wasn't the relationship that I have with her now. And every now and then I would Skype with her. Skype was a thing. I don't think that's a thing anymore, but now it was a thing. During certain times, and then when I went to the different part of Kajaki, I didn't have much connectivity at all. So Skype was not a thing. So I didn't see her face for some time, for a few months. So then I get back, and I remember parking at her mom's house, and I was terrified. And it took a lot of courage to go back into the house, and nothing else scared me about coming back. None of that shit. I mean, it wasn't my first time, luckily. So I was ready to do the transition stuff. We didn't have to stay in Lejeune that long. That was nice. There were more formal classes about transitioning back. They were cheesy, but we flew through them. But I remember sitting there, and I was terrified. I was terrified she would not recognize me. I was terrified she would be kind of hesitant to do anything. Man, and I came in, and sure enough, as soon as she saw me, it's a row home, so it's one long area. So she was in the back with her mom and sitting on the counter, and she looks at me and she goes, "Hi, Daddy." And honestly, man, I think I wept like a schoolgirl. She was probably wondering, like, who's this weirdo crying on me and hugging me so tightly, but she wasn't hesitant at all. She was very thing, and she had just developed this vocabulary, and she was like, "Pew, pew, 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 pew," and she was like this tiny little old lady and telling me all this stuff. And I was like, honestly, I knew at that point there would be no more negative things for me with coming back. Like, I had you guys. I knew. I still was worried about you and Devin. I still was worried about some of those post combat things. But I knew that I'd be okay because that relationship with her wasn't effed up. You know what I mean? and it just meant so much. And actually, to be honest, during going through a divorce, I kind of felt like the time away from my wife, soon to be ex-wife, was a good thing. So that kind of helped with just getting past our relationship. So man, just her reaction to me was just, man, it was heartwarming. It was great.
That's good. I mean, it sounds like, if that didn't work out, that would have probably,
It would have me up, man.
Yeah, that would have caused some, a lot of maybe follow-on problems that didn't happen because that was your, main concern.
That was my main concern. And there were still a couple of times when I would want to, so, my ex and I worked out a schedule and everything. And there were a couple of times that she didn't necessarily want to leave her mom because she'd been used to being with her mom for so long. Even, that even when we weren't deployed, I was in D.C. so much, and D.C. and Baltimore, they're an hour apart, kind of, but, with traffic, they can be 3 hours apart in real life. So I couldn't just go back and forth to see her all the time. So I was really somewhat non-existent in her life for a better part of a year, besides here and there and electronically. And so every now and then she would want to stay with her mom, and man, that hurt. But the next time, her mom was pretty gracious about it, and so we ended up working it out. And she was just a really good kid, man.
Yeah.
And our relationship has been great ever since. Again, you go look at the picture with her and I and you.
Yeah.
She's way older now. She's
It's
12.
crazy to think that, I can't believe she's 12.
No, she's this tiny little thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, that, I think, like I said, kept a lot of issues from manifesting.
Yeah.
Devin and I didn't have that. We came home to the single thing. So we had gone through some issues, and, now when you start, I guess, hearing about it, right? Because we didn't really talk about that stuff.
No.
But, I imagine you hear through the grapevine somehow. And what's going through your head when you hear, like, all right, there's some things going on, like, what?
Well, it's weird because you and Devin were opposite. Devin is a closed book. You're an open book. I think we kept a pretty good dialogue going and a pretty good thing. But, when you separate from your buddies after, whether you're leaving active duty for good or, on our side, reserve side, we transitioned away from each other. You can still be 6 months away from your buddies and still just catch back up with them like it was nothing. But, there was a period of time where I know you were partying pretty hard. Devin's a bit more quiet, and he's kind of not secretive, but he's kind of closed-lipped about stuff. He ended up meeting Ronnie. You ended up meeting Jill. I would say the two things that seemed to be the best for you guys was meeting those two with Ronnie and Jill, and then you and Gunnar for sure.
Yeah.
Was one of the most impactful things for you, because that was your Gabriella basically.
Yeah.
That was your Gabriella, because I had a bad feeling that both you guys were going to hit some weird experiences and kind of hit some walls. And I didn't know if you were going to call me for that. And if I did, I knew you'd probably be drunk, because that's usually when all that shit comes out.
Yeah.
And that's usually when it comes out. And like, can I get up to Philly?
How quick can I drive
2 in the
up
morning,
there? Yeah.
especially if it's a Gabriella weekend.
Yeah.
And so, every other weekend I had responsibilities for her, so I couldn't just come. Or if I was hammered at Baltimore at 2 o'clock.
Which was also,
on the non-Gabriella weekends, I couldn't come up there and hang with you guys because, you needed me. And so it was a really weird feeling. I knew you both had a good support system. I was a little more worried about Devin. Had less of a close family. I knew your family was close. But, I think we did a pretty good job staying in touch.
Yeah.
Maybe not with all the team, but I think with us three especially.
Us three stayed, And when we can get Rusty away, and Raph whenever he's back in the country.
He's a bit of a wild card.
Bit of a wild card.
Yeah.
But so you come back and you were doing your consulting business, but I think you start to see there are issues with the veteran community and
Yeah.
things like that. So you get into work with the veteran community. Talk about what you started doing and you know the philanthropic part of
Sure.
Chris Gonzalez post 2011.
Yeah. So I think for a period of time, I didn't do much philanthropically because I was just kind of doing my thing. I was trying to get involved. I was trying to get involved with the VA from a contractual point of view, with doing actual work, and I've been doing a management consulting business. So I was trying to do that, but it was very frustrating because there's just a whole lot of people trying to do business with the VA, and I don't think a lot of them are really great companies. And I don't know if the VA leadership is always the greatest, but I won't badmouth anybody who's not here to defend themselves. But no matter what, from my opinion, the government is never going to be the answer. The government might provide this or might provide that, but it's going to be on us. And I guess I did a lot of work with the Hiring Our Heroes program, and we actually got some good people that I hired full-time. But Hiring Our Heroes give us a fellowship, gives any company, a small business, a large business, they give you a fellowship to where you have a person for 6 weeks. And that person works for you, and then, if they do well, you can hire them. So you can either do that with a veteran, a military personnel that's still in the military, or a military spouse.
Oh wow.
So we were big supporters of that. We still are big supporters of that. We have a couple of employees now, my colleagues, that are from that program, and a couple of other people have done fellowships in my company. So that was a great experience for us. That program, Hiring Our Heroes, is great. And then 2017, 2018, I got involved with a guy named Brian Morrison, who was not a veteran, but went to the same high school I did, and then talked about a project that he was working on with another guy from Arundel High School in Maryland, and talked about this guy who was hitting hard times, who had hit some hard times, went to Ramadi with 2-4, and he came back, and he just looked himself in the mirror, and he decided, you know what, I got to get my stuff together. I got to reconnect with my support system, and I'm going to walk across the country and just do that. And so he literally walked across the country to reconnect with his brothers. He sat down with them and just, got back together with them. For a long time, he felt like he wasn't worthy of reconnecting with them because they were all, married with kids, and he was still single and kind of effing up.
Wow.
And, it ended up that Brian heard about this guy. This was 2015-ish. Flew out to meet him and would walk with him and document his journey, and had this ton of footage and was trying to turn it into a movie. And so I worked with Brian to kind of craft the narrative on why this movie was important. And from my perspective, the veteran community is become a bit victimized, right? So a lot of us have seen some messed up stuff. I won't deny that. But the solution, what's the solution? Is it to cry about it? Is it to say poor us? Or is it to say, to look yourself in the mirror and say, I once had a really strong support system. I got to get that back. And whether that means reconnecting with my brothers who I was in the military with, or building this new support system, or maybe opening up to my family a little more, or some of my new civilian friends, who knows? It means different things to different people. But it means looking yourself in the mirror and taking those steps to get back on track, which we both know is a real thing.
Absolutely.
And so Bastards Road is the name of the movie. Magnificent Bastards is the nickname of 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. So Bastards Road is the name of the movie. It just came out on iTunes and all the streaming services literally in May. And I'm very proud of the movie. I really do think it's an example of what people go through, a real gritty and non-scripted thing that people go through and experience, but then shows the solution.
Yeah.
Right? So it's very easy in the United States to highlight all the damn problems we have, but what's the solution? The solution is building that strength system, that support system. And a solution for people who aren't a part of it, who just maybe are a regular civilian, get out of your comfort zone and go be part of someone's support system.
Yeah.
Whether it's a veteran, whether it's someone who's drinking too much, whether it's somebody who's doing that, get out of your comfort zone and work with somebody who's going through some stuff. Because post-traumatic stress affects all of us.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a veteran who's been in combat and seen his boy get killed, whether it's a woman who was sexually traumatized, whether it's someone who lost someone who's really close to him. I had an event last night for the movie, but I said this: when post-traumatic stress builds and becomes overwhelming, that's when the support system is truly tested.
Absolutely.
That's when the quality of your support system is truly tested. And for those who have good people around them, you can lean on them and then move forward. And some people who don't have those right people, they never move forward.
Yeah, if they don't have it at all,
Yeah.
they have no shot.
And I'll tell you what, I know this is a police-based podcast. For some reason, we in the United States, we've pretended like veterans and police are these two different people. They're not. They're the same. You know, because you've been both. They're the same people. They join the military. They join the police force to protect people. They join to make a difference in their communities, whether it's a foreign country or it's in the community adjacent to them.
Yeah.
They're the same person. And so when they experience these traumatic things, it affects them the same way. But for some reason, veterans are considered heroes no matter what, and police in some circles are considered not so heroes and no matter what. Well, we go through the same things.
My Earl was saying that he believes that police are the Vietnam veterans of today.
Honestly, think about this, man. We trained for Afghanistan. We trained the better part of 6 months to build up. We went there, and then we were done for a long period of time. We were done for good. We haven't gone back since. Police officers, if you're in the right neighborhood, there's no downtime.
Nope.
There's none. There's no, for a regular infantry unit, you might have a combat deployment when it was hot, when people were deploying. They were hot, and then you went on like an Okinawa deployment or something like
Weren't
that.
they like doing 1-1 or like, it was a fast op tempo.
It was a fast op tempo for a while, but there was some decompression time. That's my point here, is there was a decent amount of decompression time. And I don't think for police officers, it's the same thing.
For some areas, you're 20 years.
Constant.
4 days on, 3 days off, or the Pittman schedule. I mean, you're going into the same thing every night for 20 to 30 years. No and the only decompression you get is the time you take off. And, for the longest time, if you're the rookie, you don't get that time off.
Exactly right. And so that's my point of everything, is that everybody is all having these different levels of post-traumatic stress, whether it's high, whether it's low, whether it's somewhere in the middle. Veterans can be a bit higher because of the stuff they've seen. Police officers, I feel like, can be a bit higher, the stuff that they've seen. But, narratives around them can be completely different. But no matter what, the solution is within our own communities, being part of each other's support system. And I think that's very important, to get out of our own bubbles and stop being so goddamn judgy and get out of our own bubbles. And that, for me, that wasn't just the veteran community. That was also in the Baltimore community.
Yeah.
I think that, there's a lot of good social topics that we come in contact with that end up getting politicized, that end up getting far left and far right, and then everybody argues and nothing ever gets done. In the meantime, people in a crappy situation just stay in that crappy situation. And while people with money and means and all that end up arguing about that, about whose fault it is or whatever, those people still stay in a shitty situation. And so I'd end up starting to coach in Northwest High School at Baltimore, Northwestern High School. And then I coached in Anne Arundel County, Maryland, and really experienced some of the stuff that people were going through. And I ended up getting involved more with kids in Baltimore, with a nonprofit in Baltimore. I did the same thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, the one thing I wrote here, what was interesting when we all met, right? We were, Devin and I were, for all intents and purposes, adult children. Some might still argue that we still are adult children, but, we've known each other for over 10 years now. And you essentially were our big brother. Not the most responsible at times.
No.
But, more or less, you were that big brother that had the experience, and you kind of got to see Devin and I grow up.
Yeah.
From where we were to where we are now, what's that like, looking back on the 10 years and seeing, I don't think either of the three of us would have said we would each be where we are today 10 years ago. But what's that like for you now?
It's like a
Yeah.
proud. It's like a cross between dad, big brother-ish. Yeah. I mean, honestly, there's nothing that's ever gonna be better to me besides raising my own kid than being a mentor for people or being a big brother to people. It's very rewarding. That's why I do the philanthropic stuff. But to see you and Devin, I mean, you've got like 19 kids, and I was part of, I was part of your wedding, and you know, I can't say that I remember the whole situation.
You do remember doing the hyena.
I did. There was a lot of Jewish things that we were doing at your wedding that I think I was laughing during, or I don't know. It was not meant to be disrespectful. We were just
By the
just
way,
drank excessively. If anyone,
my
just wanna
Aunt
make
Val
sure.
says hello.
Hey, Aunt Val. I'm not gay, by the way.
I
know you had some-
I guess we
some-
should just.
I
we
know
should
you had some
just tell-
doubts,
So
yes.
my Aunt Val is my godmother. She's a great supporter. I mean, God bless her. She doesn't just support, when we were deployed, but she does a lot of the yellow
good
ribbon
people.
stuff. And just, I mean, she's got such a big heart. But when we got back and, she saw, Chris would come up and we would go down to Baltimore, and she swore at our wedding that Chris was into other males.
I do wear some pretty bright stuff. Yeah.
Chris is known for being a man of many outfits,
Yes.
changes.
Yes.
That does remind me. I was asked to bring this up. We have to talk about your eyebrow regiment, because there's a lot of people, specifically from civil affairs, that don't believe that those are natural eyebrows.
I have never once gotten my eyebrows waxed. I will never let
Did you
anyone
hear that,
close
Fields?
to these.
That one was for you. He says he's never gotten them waxed. I don't know. The jury's still out on that one.
Fields also said he did a Murph. Fields is like 50 pounds overweight, telling you he did a Murph. You're never gonna convince me he
boy,
did
shots
100
fired.
pull-ups. Yeah, exactly. 100 pull-ups. I don't know if I can do 100 pull-ups. Anyway, I'm telling you, I've never once let anyone come close to my eyebrows. A long time ago, I dated an esthetician, and she showed me some good stuff, and I've been carefully updating them ever since with tweezers.
So you do your own care.
I swear to God, I do my own
but there is
stuff.
a regiment.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're not natural. You do it yourself.
I'm sure on video, my stupid one eyebrow is way up because it always goes up like Pitbull. But I
Mr. 305.
have not ever gotten my eyebrows waxed. It is all natural, but it is a daily struggle.
And I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the shake weight.
Well, the shake weight is known like that's the way you work out with a shake weight. It's there's a world of jokes in there when you're working out, when you got a commercial of that. So,
Oh,
there's
man.
a lot of good jokes. Yeah.
It's been a hell of a 10 years.
It's been a great 10 years, man. We've come a long way, not just you, but Devin to be in his wedding, though, again, I can't say we remember all that either. To now see him, hopefully we'll be there. Devin and I remember going when your first kid was born. You and I will go see his first kid and congratulate him. And
I won't have my uniform on because I don't need people to know, I think he actually came with his uniform on, every kid.
he came on his fireman uniform for sure.
Guys, I'm a fireman.
Guys.
If you're watching, Dev, love you.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm
It's
a
okay.
fireman. No codes violated.
Oh man, yeah, it's been interesting to see. I can say that 10 years ago I would not have ever saw love sitting across a table from each other doing this
Podcasting. What was a podcast? 10
what
years
was
ago?
a podcast? But based on some events, I would have either most likely I would have said one of us or together we would have all spent a couple nights in jail.
Oh well, you're a cop.
Yeah, well.
You're guys.
Yeah,
I've got to get out of jail free card in all of New Jersey.
I mean, when we did the Nashville trip, she gave us like 4 simple rules on the pedal tavern, and we couldn't follow them within 30 seconds.
No. We humped a lot of stuff in Nashville.
Oh, there was so much humping. Can't wait to go back.
I wish we could show a video of humping because I don't want people to get the wrong idea of what humping is.
I guess the best way to describe
Clothes are on.
Nashville, there weren't. I mean, we had bright pink tank tops that said "Team Bad Decisions"
And
and
silkies,
silkies.
yes.
Oh, should we show everybody our silkies?
Yeah.
I feel like we, so We love Silkies. We embrace the skies out, thighs out
Yes.
type deal. So got to give a shout out to Thigh Huggers because they
Yes.
give, they're these awesome Silkies, and we like short shorts. So we decided to do the entire episode
Oh, don't mess up anything.
in Silkies. Yeah, the American flags, There we go. Lots of room for movement, activities. Yeah. So thank you to Thigh Huggers for those.
That's okay, Gunnar. We're good.
He's a little mad. He doesn't have any.
I know.
Is there anything else you wanna cover before we wrap things up? Anything I forgot to ask or whatnot?
No, man. I suppose to wrap things up, if I could provide any guidance to our listeners and to provide any of the lot of lessons learned that I've learned along the way, man. It's just stop fucking caring about what the media tells you to care about. Stop caring about what this person is or what that person is. I got friends that are this and I got friends that are that. And, I learned a lot by just shutting up and listening to Afghans. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And just learning about their journey and just thinking to myself, man, their life is just so different than mine was in the United States. I learn about that when I listen to kids from Baltimore. I learn about kids when if I talk to a dude from the farm in Iowa, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes just shut the fuck up and listen to somebody else instead of being ready to and argue. Like, there's a lot of good people
Can
out
we get one of
there.
those again?
You know what I mean? There's just a lot of good country out there. The media might make you think, Fox will tell you one thing, CNN will tell you one thing. There's just a lot of good people. There's a lot of good interactions. There's a lot of fun times.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of connections and commonalities to be had, and stop worrying about what people believe. Like, who gives a shit, man?
Oh, I mean,
we're just better together.
Going back to the boot camp thing and the society, if it weren't for, if we had somehow run into each other in a bar, probably would have never. Maybe we would have. Oh, you're a Marine. No, let's go. Let's take a shot, brother.
Yeah.
But like
that was the Hulk Hogan voice. Did you just do a Hulk Hogan voice?
That's my drunk Chris Gonzalez voice. I don't know. Maybe Hank, little Hank in there.
Right.
But we probably would have never. That would have been it.
Yeah.
Same with Raph. I mean, let's take Raph. Completely other side of the spectrum.
Oh man, he was a hippie.
We'll go with that. Hippie is a very good. So Raph, real quick, we were getting ready for Afghanistan, we would go out to the field with the infantry unit we were assigned to, 1-9. And as reservists and non-grunts, you kind of have to prove yourself to these guys. And so, I was always willing to carry some extra weight. Like, hey guys, I'm not going to be a burden to you guys.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm an extra help.
Yeah.
So we were carrying extra ammo, water, food, whatever. Raph was carrying bags of tea leaves and a yoga mat. And we're like, we're going to war, man. Like, he's like, yeah, I know. You got to do your yoga. Got to have chai tea. And we're like,
oh man, he
God,
had
I love
organic
you.
snacks in his pack. We're eating MREs and stuff that's really terrible for your body. He's like organic cashews.
But we have never gotten to know him at all. And now,
we would have definitely never.
he dragged
connected
me
with
back
him.
from the square the one night.
You may have actually not have died in Afghanistan,
Yeah.
but you were pretty close to dying in
act-
Fells Point, Baltimore.
I'm pretty sure you guys thought I fell into the harbor because someone said something like they thought a guy in American flag pants fell into the harbor and
Oh,
drowned,
yeah.
and you guys ran back to the point or the square wherever we were, and there I was just passed out in a bush.
You did fall into a bush. Yeah.
I was out.
Yes. Raph was quite unique.
I did lose a flip flop that night. Thanks, Raph.
I think you might have lost one of your hearing aids also.
When haven't I?
Yeah.
And my dignity.
Yeah.
That was long gone.
Yes. You and Baltimore weren't always friends.
I do remember that was like one of the first times using Uber, and I didn't understand it. And you guys had left. I think it was Looney's. You went to another bar, and I was trying to find you, so I ordered an Uber, but it was moving, so I was running after it on the screen to catch it because I didn't know how it worked, and it couldn't find me because I'm chasing it. And then I just gave up, went and got pizza,
Oh,
and
yeah.
passed out in the bush.
Yeah, you did pass on the bush. God bless America. Those are some good times, man.
Yeah. So, all right. So you worked on Bastards Road.
Bastards Road. If anyone could, if you can download it in terms of renting it, my only ask would be rent it. If you like it, please review it. It's a great movie. And again, my big thing is when I met the directors, do not portray veterans as victims. Do not portray us as broken. You could portray some of the challenges that we face, but then also talk about the positive aspects of this. And I think the movie comes with both the negative and the positive. And the positive is get your ass out there and develop your support system. And I think that resonates with bigger picture, right? I think that resonates with people more than just veterans.
Everybody.
Yeah, it should
Stop,
resonate with everybody.
stop being sorry for yourself.
Stop being sorry for
like,
yourself.
what do you say in Christ? What's the movie where he goes back to school?
Which one are we talking about?
He's like an older adult. He's got to go back through all the grades to inherit.
Billy Madison.
Billy Madison. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he goes, "You got to get off your ass and find that fucking dog."
Yeah.
I mean,
it's true.
that's what it is.
No, it's true,
Stop feeling
you know?
sorry for yourself and change your life.
Whether you're going through a divorce or a life change or had a death or you're dealing with substance abuse or something like that, all of those things are kind of the same concept, man. Like at some point you got to say, I need to do something different, but I don't have to do it alone. And I think that's the overwhelming thing about doing something different and making a big change in your life is people think, F me, I got to do this alone. You don't have to do it alone. There's resources, there's people. Start with the people that are around you. You know
There's
what I
always
mean?
someone out there willing to help.
There's someone out. That's the best part of the United States, man. Everyone wants to friggin' help.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a million people that are like in this philanthropic field. I want to tell you that when I looked it up last time, there's well over, I think there's somewhere between 10 and 50,000 veteran serving nonprofits. I forget the number. There are 8 to 9,000 plus nonprofits just in the city of Baltimore, not for veterans, for everybody.
Oh wow.
But we're still in this, we're still in high extremes of poverty.
Woe was me.
Exactly. So the resources are there. Are they great? Maybe, maybe not. Are the veteran resources out there? Are they good? Are they quality? Maybe, maybe not. But you and I know we can call upon each other if we need it. Mm-hmm. And for the veteran community, I know that everyone knows at least one person they can call on.
As you said, if you expect the worst, anything better is good.
Anything better is good.
Mm. So where can they download or rent, or is it just on iTunes? Is it anywhere else?
Yeah, you can go on iTunes Movies for Bastards Road. You can go on your little Roku stick and just go in the movie search, and Bastards Road will come up. You can rent it and do all that stuff. I think it's on Fandango. I feel really,
that's a fun word.
Really weird saying that in public, but Fandango, like YouTube, you could buy it or rent it or whatever. And again, rating it and reviewing it. And you could be honest. If you don't like it, say you don't like it. But if you do like it, please show us some love, because we want to get it out to a broader audience, and I think it'll be a good one to take away this doom and gloom garbage from Hollywood.
Awesome. Is any other plugs you want to give? Any nonprofits you want to give a shout out to? People should be checking out.
Yeah, the other organization I work with from Baltimore City's name is Mentoring Mentors. They do some great work, man. We try not to focus on the problem. We focus all of our efforts on the solution. We focus, really what I'd love to create is an environment like boot camp, an environment where people support each other, an environment where people, work together and thrive, and people come from different backgrounds. Some people are good at something, some people are really struggling at another thing. And so we help young men and young ladies build their support systems, a very strong support system. We get them outside of Baltimore City and get them, exposed to different successful people and successful things. And our goal is to put them on a sustainable track so they don't need us anymore.
Awesome. That's mentors. What is it?
Mentoring Mentors. Mentoringmentors.org.
Mentoringmentors.org.
I think there's a dash, mentoring-mentors.org.
If you Google it, I'm sure you'll... Mentoring Mentors Baltimore, Google it. I'm
There
pretty
you
sure
go.
they'll come up.
Yep.
Do they have like a Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff?
All that good stuff.
Cool. Awesome. Any other plugs you want to give?
No, a quick plug for AG Associates, my company. But
There you go. I knew it was coming
philanthropic
in.
stuff is more important than all that, man.
No, go it out there. Do it again.
Quick plug for AG Associates, A-G golfassociates.com. And you'll see my weird-looking face up there and several of my colleagues.
With his finely tuned eyebrows.
And if you go to the community page, you'll see a lot of stuff I've written about military transition, veterans and community health, a lot of lessons learned, how I apply stuff from the Marine Corps to the private sector. And really what I do for a living is try to help companies go from point A to point B.
Awesome. Well, folks, make sure you tune. If you couldn't tune into the whole live broadcast tonight, the video is going to be posted to our YouTube page, the 1023. That's 10-TWOTHREE. Hit that in the search. Make sure you like and subscribe so you see all the updated content. Give us a like and a follow on our Facebook and Instagram. And for those of you who listened in tonight but don't like the video because either you don't like to see my ugly face or you just don't like seeing a dog for 2 hours.
Or you're offended by my eyebrows.
Who doesn't like seeing a dog or his fine eyebrows for 2 hours? You can always get the audio-only podcast in the next few days on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and pretty much any of the other major podcast platforms. Make sure to check our Facebook for some upcoming notifications. When we get the next guest lined up, we'll be putting that out there. We're looking forward to getting them in the studio. We're just trying to figure out some dates. My work schedule is pretty crazy coming up.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure all that stuff out.
Yep.
But Chris, this was awesome having you in here for the last 2 hours. Thank you for coming up all the way from Baltimore.
Sure.
I wish I had a shake weight in here. That would have probably made it a little bit more fun. See how long you could do it. But have a great story to tell, and above all else, it's always just great catching up.
Definitely.
And I just thought we didn't bring up the horsey. That poor horse.
Brooke.
Oh,
Jeez,
Cowneck.
Brooke.
Anyway, thank you, Chris. It was an honor and a pleasure to have you in the studio.
Thank you for having me, man.
As we always say, when you're in the corner, the fight isn't over. If you give up, that's when it's done. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be the next day. The fight's going to hurt. It's going to be tough, but it's worth fighting. Always do what you can to keep on living to that next day. And remember, survive until Tuesday. Good night, everybody.
Night.
If we were to tell you there's a doctor who truly cares about the men and women of law enforcement and offers flexible hours to suit your busy schedule, would you believe us? Dr. Alex and the staff at Tri-State Health and Wellness have been serving the men and women of law enforcement for more than 10 years. Whether it's physical therapy, family medicine, pain management, or general health and wellness, Dr. Alex is the doctor to see. Find out more and visit BlueTristate.com. That's www.BlueTristate.com. MortgagesForBlue.com from Michelle Hendershot and Homebridge Financial Services. Michelle Hendershot and the team at Homebridge Financial can assist you every step of the way. With over a decade of experience assisting law enforcement officers with their dream of owning a home, the choice is simple. Contact Michelle Hendershot today at MortgagesForBlue.com. As a first responder, you can't take care of others until you take care of you first. That's why a simple cardiac stress test can give you peace of mind so you can perform your day-to-day duties without any worries. Remember, good cardiac health includes scheduling a simple stress test, and doing so is simple. Visit www.bluestresstest.com. Do it for you and all who depend on you. VisitBlue.com is an online law enforcement-friendly business directory. At VisitBlue.com, you'll find a wide array of business professionals that support the men and women of law enforcement. If you're looking for a healthcare professional, a real estate agent, home improvement contractor, and even the best restaurants, then it's time to check out VisitBlue.com. Visit www.visitblue.com now. If you're in the market for a new vehicle or a certified used vehicle, then visit Fetty Auto Group. Located at the junction of Route 46 and Route 3 in Clifton, New Jersey, Fetty Auto Group stands shoulder to shoulder with the men and women in blue. Stop by and ask for Troy Mall and ask about the offers for first responders. For more information, visit FettyAuto.com. That's FetteAuto.com. Moments of Silence, Inc., along with Blue Suicide, is a nonprofit organization founded to support and raise awareness about the epidemic of suicides amongst law enforcement, military personnel, and first responders. For more information on how you can help, visit momentofsilenceinc.org. TheBlueApparel.com. Be blue. Be proud. Buy blue. The official law enforcement apparel source for the men and women in blue. It's not just apparel. It's our way of life. Visit www.theblueapparel.com. The Blue Magazine, the law enforcement publication by law enforcement professionals for the men and women of law enforcement. The unfiltered voice of law enforcement. TheBlueMagazine.com.